Under a bright blue sky, someone complains that today's relentless heat is just too much. Resting her head on her hand, the gray-haired woman wonders what is keeping Thee's dad and suggests they wait just a little longer for him. Thee, the blonde girl, lets out a joyful laugh and happily agrees to wait longer for her father. The calendar marks the hot passing days of August as cicadas hum in the background. As they sit together on the porch, a somber narration reveals it has been 10 nights since Thee's dad failed to come home. A simple drawing nearby shows 2 smiling faces surrounded by hearts and cute pink stickers. Thee recalls a happy memory of being held by a kind black-haired man wearing a cap. She imagines her dad is a super strong paladin from the Empire of Telosium who punishes villains every day. The little girl looks up with wide, shimmering green eyes, captivated by her father's stories. A cartoonish paladin lets out a hearty bwahaha as gold coins rain down from above in her imagination. During a meal, Thee asks why her father works every day, and the neighbor explains that his job does not pay very much. While the elderly woman scolds the neighbor for being blunt, Thee sadly realizes her father cannot afford the new sticker book. She imagines colorful cartoon characters and wonders about visiting the beach or a theme park. Other children show off their drawings and tell Thee she should visit those places with her dad too. Standing alone at the playground, Thee thinks about how she and her dad have never visited places like that. A close-up of the little girl's eye shows her quiet, longing gaze toward the other children. The neighbors discuss their concerns about Thee's lack of birth registration and the potential for deportation from the country. The gray-haired woman cries out in distress over a possible separation, though she is grateful for the kind kindergarten director. The elderly neighbors laugh warmly as they praise Thee for being a smart child who taught herself to read. In a golden memory, the black-haired man promises Thee they will live together and eventually return to his hometown. Holding her close, the man vows that he will make sure his daughter smiles every single day. Thee beams with pure, unadulterated happiness as she laughs in her father's loving arms. Returning to the present, the little girl's expression is soft and expectant while she waits. The dark-haired woman burst into the room, shouting frantically to her sister that something terrible has occurred. Startled by the sudden noise, the gray-haired woman tells her sister to stop shouting and scaring the child. A heavy silence falls as both women look at a document, their faces turning pale with sudden shock. The elderly woman's face contorts in a silent, horrified gasp as the news hits her. Desperate cries echo as the women wonder what to do, eventually telling Thee to stay put while they leave. Left alone, the little blonde girl stands quietly on the porch looking at the yard. Thee's drawing lies on the ground as she lets out a soft, distressed gasp of realization. Thee stares intently at the document, her heart beginning to race as she reads the text. A pair of hands reaches out to lift a plain white box from the floor. A public notice of unconnected death confirms that a deceased person's remains have been processed with no known relations. Kneeling on the porch, Thee reads the word deceased over and over in quiet disbelief. She remembers her father walking through the gate with a bag and a warm smile. The realization that deceased means a dead person washes over her as she stares toward the gate. The sky turns gray as a heavy rain begins to pour down over the rooftops. A man stands soaked in the downpour, his head bowed as he carries a white box toward the house. He places the box down with a thud and tells Thee she has waited a long time. A hand rests comfortingly on Thee's head as someone suggests she spend the night at the grandmother's house. The gray-haired woman pulls Thee into a tearful hug, sobbing over the poor child as the rain falls. Looking at her drawing, Thee thinks about how she used her special sticker, yet her dad never returned. A faded memory of her father's smiling face appears, repeating his promise to her. Thea lies awake in bed next to the grandmother, staring blankly up at the ceiling. Her green eyes are wide and hollow as she blinks silently in the dark room. The sound of small, quick footsteps sounds as Thea sneaks out of the room in the middle of the night. Reaching up, she carefully takes the white box down from the shelf where it sits. Thea opens the box and softly identifies the items inside as her father's personal belongings. Touching the items, she whispers to herself that these things belong to her late father. A single tear falls as Thea laments that he promised they would go to his hometown together. Delicate hands lift a golden necklace featuring a vibrant, glowing red gemstone from the box. Thea clutches the magical jewelry to her chest as she continues to sob inconsolably. The heartbroken little girl collapses on the floor, desperately wishing her father was still alive. Shrill, agonized wails erupt from the child as she holds onto her only remaining memento. A somber narration reflects that the grieving child simply needed her father to be there. A sudden mystical glow emanates from the gemstone, startling Thea as it floats into the air. The pulsing light speaks with a mysterious voice, questioning why the little girl is crying. Staring in disbelief, the blonde girl realizes the inanimate stone is actually communicating with her. A small black dragon emerges from the brilliant light, repeating its inquiry about her persistent tears. Thea wonders if the stone used magic to transform into this strange, winged creature before her. Wide-eyed and curious, the little girl calls out a name to the newly appeared companion. The dragon floats lazily in the air, bluntly asking the child if her father has died. Startled by the direct question, the little girl breaks down into even more intense, painful sobbing. The creature watches with glowing red eyes as she laments being left completely and utterly alone. Softly pressing its head against hers, the dragon offers a rare moment of physical comfort. Shimmering green eyes filled with tears look back at the dragon, seeking any glimmer of hope. The dragon offers to save her father if she promises to stop her crying immediately. It warns that saving him requires leaving behind everything she has ever known or loved. Thea listened intently, trying to process the heavy cost of the dragon's mysterious and life-changing proposition. The mystical voice promises to return her to the land where she was originally born. A warm memory of her father's smile reinforces her desperate desire to see him again. Wiping away her tears, the determined little girl agrees to go wherever the dragon leads. She cries out for her new friend to save her father as light engulfs her. Radiant magic swirls around the child, whisking her away from her lonely reality and home. A massive beam of light pierces the heavens, carrying her toward a distant, unknown destination. The scene transitions to a beautiful, sun-drenched meadow filled with vibrant wildflowers and lush greenery. Thea wakes up inside a white tent, blinking away the remnants of her long, magical sleep. Kneeling beside the box of belongings, she repeats her plea for her father to be saved. Her eyes flutter open as she calls out into the bright, unfamiliar morning air. A black-haired boy with animal ears peers down at her, asking if she is finally awake. Terrified, Thea falls backward and screams, demanding to know who this strange, dark-haired boy is. She noticed his sharp, dark horns and realizes they match the small dragon's unique physical features. Thea excitedly realizes her companion can transform into a human boy, just like her father. Looking at the unfamiliar sky, she asks where they have arrived after their magical journey. The boy explains they have reached this place because of her wish to see him. Thea gazes out at the sprawling landscape, her heart filled with a new, hopeful energy. She recalls her father's stories of Telosium, a vast land of clean air and incredible beauty. The boy somberly reminds her that even a legend cannot revive those who have already died. He reveals they have traveled 7 years into the past, long before her own birth occurred. Confusion washes over Thea as she struggles to understand how she can exist right now. A sudden realization hits her, causing her to freeze in shock at the incredible news. She visualizes her flight across the fabric of time on the back of the black dragon. Thea praises the legendary creature's power, though the boy seems slightly annoyed by his nickname. He describes the immense strain of bending dimensions to facilitate such a long-distance time travel trip. The boy mutters to himself, wondering why he is bothering to explain complex magic to her. He confirms the most important fact: her father is definitely alive in this current past world. A soft light begins to shimmer as the boy's human form starts to slowly fade away. The magical boy transforms back into the small, winged black dragon she first met. He cautions her that finding one man in such a vast world is never a guarantee. Thea remains hopeful, imagining the day she will finally hold her father's warm hand again. Overwhelmed with emotion, the little girl sheds tears of joy as she looks up. Thea rubs her eyes while recalling that the holy knights gather in the imperial capital. Standing in the meadow, Thea cheers and rallies Kamang to head toward the imperial capital. In southern Briawood Forest, wandering mercenary Basto Perix complains that his meal tastes absolutely terrible. Basto notes that mountain animals have vanished because of monsters emerging from the magical stones. A weathered map is held open, clearly marking the path toward the Grand Imperial Castle. A dark charcoal stick is used to mark a specific location within the forest map. Narration explains that magic stones cause monsters to appear endlessly, even if they are raided. Basto gazes out with a weary expression, his face marked by the scars of battle. A multi-eyed avian monster looms as Basto recalls almost dying during his fight yesterday. Despite the intense battles, Basto reflects on surviving again while a burning memory haunts him. Letting out an exhausted sigh, the mercenary laments that his current struggle feels completely pointless. Deciding to head back regardless of prey, Basto is suddenly startled by a nearby sound. Basto turns sharply with his hammer, wondering if something has been caught in his trap. Hiding behind a tree, Thea realizes she is in big trouble and breathes heavily. Looking back at her starting point, Thea wonders why she has traveled such a short distance. A large bird flies overhead as Thee and Kamang walk through the vast green heap. Thee looks at Kamang and says that if only she had wings, she could fly straight to the capital. Kamang tells her not to even think about hanging on to him because he cannot carry her. Stunned, the little girl realizes the magical dragon was able to read her inner thoughts. Gasps are heard as Thee asks if it is really true. She excitedly concludes that as she thought, he really is a legendary puppetmon. Kamang flies over Thee and explains that he cannot do anything right now. He admits that he used up all of his strength.
Thee realizes that Kamang used up all of his power just to grant her desperate wish.
Feeling guilty, the child tells herself not to be pushy when she is not being grateful. Thee happily calls out to the dragon, promising him a shoulder massage. She explains that she learned how to give massages at preschool and was #1 in the quail class. Kamang wonders to himself if she thinks just dropping part of his name makes a difference. Kamang abruptly rejects the offer, causing Thee to recoil in surprise as he flies away. Kamang explains that even if he had power left, he could not use magic that leaves a trail, like teleportation, because they would be tracked. A magical sound rings out as Thee gasps and calls out for Kamang. She realizes in disbelief that he has turned back into a stone. Looking at the stone, Thee realizes that since Kamang is a legendary puppetmon, he must be resting inside a puppet ball. Thee puts the stone in her bag and tells Kamang not to worry. She vows to make it to the imperial capital and tells him to just go to sleep. Marching forward with determination, the little girl is unaware of the trap beneath her feet. Shocked, Thee is suddenly hoisted into the air by a rope as a shadow appears. A menacing figure with a glowing eye looms in the darkness beneath the hanging child. Trapped within the heavy net, Thee looks down in pure terror at the stranger below. Basto approaches with his hammer, causing the frightened girl to let out a small hiccup. Wailing in despair, Thee cries out to Kamang as she fears her life is over. Thee tries to act brave, waving her hand while still in the net. She tells someone not to cry because she is okay. Basto looks confused as the girl's hiccups continue, expressing his deep worry for the situation. A narrative note confirms that Basto Perix is unable to make sense of the strange encounter. Basto ponders the danger of a child being alone in a monster-infested forest, Admai. Narration reflects on the child trying to calm him down in the monster-filled forest. Thai stammers that she is okay and that her dad is right here and really close by, so he can just go. The mercenary realizes that explains why the dad is close, noting kids disappear if eyes are taken off them. He asks if her dad will be shocked to see her in the net. As the mercenary reaches out to free her, Thee lets out a loud, terrified scream. Thee wails for Kamang to save her while struggling in the net. Basto tells her to cry even louder so that her father will be able to find her. Thee cries and insists to herself that it is true. She whispers that her daddy is really here. Basto hears her and remarks that it is funny how talking about her dad just makes her cry harder. After freeing her, the man tells Thee to go to her father, leaving her bewildered. Thee asks if he is not coming to catch her, to which Basto asks why he would do that. She calls him a kidnapper, leading him to realize his monster blood-stained hair, lack of washing, and threatening weapon made her cry. Basto sighs and explains that he does not kidnap people and that the net is for eating rabbits, not her. Thee screams in horror at the mention of rabbits, while the man realizes his explanation backfired. The mercenary puts down his hammer and promises to back off so she feels safe. Basto walks away, urging Thee to find her father before the forest becomes even more dangerous. Looking back one last time, the little girl hesitates before venturing deeper into the woods. A quick pitter-patter sounds as she runs through the lush forest, determined to keep going. Basto Perix watches her suspiciously, doubting she will find her parents safely and deciding to follow. A loud thud rings out as Thee suddenly trips and tumbles into the dirt. The mercenary is stunned that she only made it 3 steps before failing so miserably. Sobbing quietly, the child points to her scraped and bleeding knee, whimpering for the man's help. Basto stares in wide-eyed shock at the injury, his face pale with sudden guilt and alarm. He carefully wraps a clean bandage around her small leg while she asks about rabbit flavors. Basto confirms that meat is good, while Thee wonders if it tastes like cow moo flavors. Smirking slightly, the mercenary realizes the child's picky talk about food suggests she comes from nobility. Looking at the quiet woods, he realizes she was lying and that nobody else is nearby. A startle escapes Thee as the man demands the truth about where her father actually is. Fingers twisting nervously, she admits that her father is really in a place called the capital. Basto explains that the capital is a long 5-day journey from their current location in the forest. A pleasant bubbling sound rises from the pot as a warm meal cooks over the campfire. The mercenary calls out her earlier lie, causing Thee to stammer and blush in embarrassment. She recalls a preschool lesson about how to act around kidnappers to stay safe.
Thea whispers advice to the mercenary about negotiating with kidnappers while he wonders if he'll ever need it.
The sound of a metal spoon clinking against the pot echoes as he stirs the thick soup.
Thea insists her leg is fine, and Basto notes her polite manners match her high-quality clothing.
A warm, hazy memory of a family sharing a peaceful meal flashes through the mercenary's mind.
The little girl looks up with wide, innocent eyes as the smell of food fills the air.
Her eyes sparkle with delight as she realizes she is finally going to get something to eat. With a warm smile, Basto hands her a steaming bowl of fresh soup to enjoy.
A soft steam rises as Thea holds the warm bowl, feeling the heat seep into her hands.
She tells herself that her daddy is waiting for her and she must stay strong. A happy cheer escapes the girl as she gratefully accepts the meal and agrees to travel together. Taking a long drink, the mercenary mentions he was planning to head to the capital anyway. Basto reveals the meal is carrot soup, causing a small gasp of surprise from the hungry child.
Thea stares in absolute horror at the realization that she has to eat vegetables.
Recalling a kindergarten song, she resolves to eat everything even if she doesn't like it. A soft pop sounds as her eyes widen in shock upon finally tasting the first spoonful. She joyfully exclaims that the carrots are sweet as jelly, prompting the man to offer more. Thea happily prepares for another bowl until she notices something strange written on the wood. She points out that there is writing on the bowl, mentioning it says the word daddy. The mercenary freezes mid-motion, his expression turning sharp and alert at her unexpected reading ability. Thea's confused, realizing these aren't the letters she learned, but she can still read them perfectly. She realizes they are speaking different languages, but can understand each other through some strange magic. A sudden gasp of awe follows as she credits Kamung's legendary power for translating the world. She hugs her pink backpack tightly, feeling a renewed sense of connection to her dragon friend. Under a vast starry sky, she whispers that she misses both her father and her companion. Soft breathing sounds in the quiet night as the little girl falls into a deep sleep. Basto looks back at the sleeping child with a weary but softened expression as the fire glows. The mercenary carries Thea across his shoulder as they trek through the bright sunlit wilderness together. She holds up a small beetle excitedly, promising they will all become strong and eat well. A loud slurp sounds as the girl eagerly finishes every drop of her soup by the river. 4 days later, they reach the massive stone walls of the capital's first city gate. Basto carries the child toward the guards, his face set with a look of grim determination. The guard informs the mercenary that his identity is voided and strictly forbids them from entering.
Thea clutches her bag in fear as the guard harshly commands them to turn back immediately.
A wooden sign for the gate inn creaks outside the capital's first massive stone gate. Basto slams his fist in rage, swearing that Karl Warven is behind his current misfortune. The proprietress yells at Basto for damaging the inn and tells him to show off elsewhere. While scrubbing Thea's face, the proprietress ignores the child's cries and tells her to be brave. The owner of the gate inn asks Basto if his mercenary ID was actually deleted. Basto suspects Karl bribed the Holy Knights to expel him, as his ID was valid recently. Basto glares at the sweating man, asking if he knows the extent of his recent actions. The mercenary shouts about the 3 magic stones that have been plaguing the Empire's outskirts. Basto explains that he sieged one of the magic stones in Brewood and came to report. A soldier mocks Basto's claim, suggesting it is exactly the kind of lie he expected. The man laughs, claiming the Deathhound mercenaries already reported and completed that specific siege perfectly. Thea watches as the official identifies Basto and accuses him of trying to steal credit. The official yells that Basto is shamelessly deceiving Holy Knights and orders him to leave immediately. Fury consumes Basto as he recalls Karl Warven promising to protect his family in his absence. Golden energy burns in Basto's eyes as an overwhelming, murderous rage begins to take control. The soldiers and onlookers are paralyzed by the suffocating dark aura radiating from the enraged mercenary. Thea reaches out and gently touches Basto's arm as she softly calls out to him. The little girl looks up with innocent eyes and asks the man if he is okay. Basto calms down instantly, the dark energy vanishing as he gazes at the child's worried face. Thea whispers that while he looks scary, he actually seems very sad for some mysterious reason. Basto apologizes to the girl, explaining that their journey to the capital will now take longer. Thea beams up at the man and cheerfully tells him that she doesn't mind at all. Nearby men gossip about Basto being a crazy bastard and wonder why he was ever hired. Basto thinks about finding a place to stay while he investigates the truth about his home. The mercenary rants about the unfairness of blocking the capital and banning civilians from entering safely. The inn owner calms Basto down while mentioning the refugees outside who lost their homes. The proprietress tickles a clean Thea's cheeks, causing the little girl to giggle with pure joy. The owner advises Basto to control his temper to avoid getting into more serious trouble. Basto sighs deeply and admits to the owner that the entire situation is just incredibly frustrating. Thea notices Basto making a sad face again while she quietly sips her drink at the table.
The owner sighs and correctly guesses that Basto is thinking about his lost hometown in Vananra.
The proprietress expresses her deep sympathy for the tragedy that destroyed the people of Van Anra village.
Thea lets out a shocked gasp, her eyes widening as she suddenly remembers something very important.
Basto and the owner look at the little girl in confusion after her sudden, loud reaction.
Running toward them with her drink, Thea stammers the word banana with a look of realization.
Thea asks if Banana Village is his hometown, and the owner clarifies she means Van Anra Village.
Basto confirms that it is his hometown, but asks the child why she is asking him.
Thea excitedly shouts that she knows something, blaming her late memory for the sudden realization.
In a flashback, Thea's father explains that 20 strong people are better than 100 weaklings.
Thea asks if his subordinates were legendary puppetmon, and her father laughs while holding her. The black-haired man confirms they were all super strong as he smiles warmly at his daughter.
Thea remembers her dad mentioned someone called Mr. Hammer was the one closest to him.
Dad explains that Carl was the vice captain of Deathhound, making Thea gasp at the name. The father reveals that the captain named Carl worked Mr. Hammer to the absolute bone. Young Thea jokes that Carl and Hammer sound like a tool set, making her father laugh. Thea realizes Basto is Mr. Hammer and that Carl betrayed him and ran away alone. Dad explains that Carl slacked off in the village while making hammer siege stones every day. Basto only left because he was promised his wife and daughter would be well taken care of. Massive flying monsters attack the village during a rare event where they move during the day. The black-haired man points at the girl's nose while explaining the terrifying nature of monsters.
A villager screams that monsters are swarming the outskirts and calls for the mercenaries, while Carl complains about his head ringing. Carl commands the villagers to go home and wait while he assesses the situation and prepares to evacuate everyone soon.
Instead of helping, Carl secretly runs away with several carriages filled with goods while the village burns in the distance.
The villagers perished while waiting for help, leaving Basto to find his fallen family among the wreckage of his home.
A hollow, agonizing scream of pure despair echoes as Basto holds the lifeless bodies of his loved ones in the ruins.
Thea looks down sadly as the story reveals that Mr. Hammer left the Deathhound mercenary group after that tragedy. She realizes that wicked Carl bribed the Holy Knights to delete Basto's identification because Basto refused to follow him anymore.
The scene returns to the inn as Thea contemplates the unfairness of Basto being branded a criminal after losing everything.
Her father explains that Basto was all alone when he first met him as the top-ranked mercenary at that time. Dad gave Basto a new identification and asked him to join because he saw he was a kind and strong man. Thea realizes her father is the only one who can help Basto, and she must find him as quickly as possible. With cream on her face, she resolves to find her father because he is the only one who can help Basto.
A sudden realization hits the little girl that she must travel to the capital specifically to meet her father.
Thea feels conflicted since her father is inside the capital, but she is currently forbidden from entering the city gates.
Stress overwhelms the child as she grabs her head and stammers about being in a total, confusing dilemma.
Moonlight bathes the quiet gate inn as a peaceful night settles over the outskirts of the massive stone capital. Thea sleeps fitfully in the inn bed, her brow furrowed with the weight of her worries about the difficult journey.
A soft rustle sounds as the mercenary's gloved hand carefully reaches down to tuck the sleeping child into her bed.
Basto watches over the sleeping girl with a weary expression as he considers their uncertain and dangerous future together. He wonders if he should make a new mercenary identification or find another secret way to enter the capital. Basto considers if he must entrust the child to someone reliable to ensure she reaches her father in the capital. He reflects on their brief meeting, looking at the child with a gaze filled with soft and quiet affection. While Basto sleeps on the floor, Thea's pink dragon backpack begins to glow with a strange and magical aura.
Kamang peeks out from the unzipped backpack, his red eyes glowing in the dark as he watches over the room.
The tiny dragon crawls out of the bag and snuggles up against the sleeping girl in the quiet inn room. A soft whisper sounds as Kamang mentions he was worried, but she managed to make it all this way alone. A blue-haired boy appears in a magical vision, expressing his deep desire to stay with the little girl longer. The boy laments that his magical power is not yet fully restored to its peak strength after their journey. He gently touches the sleeping girl's forehead, a soft and comforting gesture as she continues to sleep soundly.
A magnificent glowing locket radiates a warm and powerful light that illuminates the dim and quiet tavern room.
The magical energy swirls peacefully around the bed, marking a quiet moment of protection for the resting child. A sleepy yawn escapes Thea as she descends the inn stairs the next morning, rubbing her tired eyes. The owner mentions Basto left early and invites the bored little girl to go grocery shopping with her. They walk through a bustling market street where various merchants shout about trading iron, fish, and fresh produce.
An angry merchant yells at a hooded person on the ground, demanding they move out of his way immediately. Thea watches the confrontation with a quiet and observant expression while holding the inn owner's hand in the crowd. The proprietress sighs, noting that the magic stones have caused manpower shortages and made life much harder for everyone. Spotting a ragged child nearby, Thea realizes that things are exactly as Basto described regarding the suffering of the poor. Basto's angry words about the unfair treatment of refugees outside the capital echo in Thea's mind as she watches. She clenches her tiny fist, noticing that everyone except the capital's elite is struggling to survive in the outskirts. A man screams at a hooded figure, calling them a crazy thief and accusing them of touching his wallet. The hooded figure protests their innocence, insisting they only bumped into the man while walking past the crowded stall. A sudden, sharp whoosh sounds as the aggressive man winds up a heavy blow to strike the person on the ground. Thea is horrified as she watches, thinking the man is not supposed to hit people and that hitting is wrong. She recalls a hazy memory of a woman kneeling in a dark hallway, hiding her face in fear and pain. Thea remembers that a bad man used to hit the kind lady from room 203 every single day. Despite her own suffering, the lady was a good person who offered Thea ice cream and shared warm smiles. A determined huff escapes Thea as she puffs out her cheeks, her eyes filling with a sudden, fiery anger. A loud stomp sounds as Thea jumps in the way, shouting for the man to stop because hitting is bad. The inn owner gasps in total shock, her eyes wide as she watches the little girl bravely intervene in the fight. The merchant's face contorts with rage as he yells at Thea for her sudden, brave interference. He turns to see a crowd gathering while voices defend the child against his aggressive and unfair behavior. The man barks a question at the onlookers, demanding to know if they recognize his high status. The inn owner looms over him, explaining that status means nothing in the checkpoint's dangerous back alleys. She warns that if he wishes to avoid becoming a nameless street corpse, he should leave quietly. A stunned silence follows as the merchant trembles under the weight of the owner's intimidating, cold threat. The man retreats hastily, shoving past people while loudly complaining about his terrible luck for the day. Thea is awestruck by the owner's hidden strength as the hooded figure remains hunched on the ground. The proprietress questions the hooded figure about their long absence from the room they had previously rented. The hooded person tells the woman to mind her own business, revealing a defiant and youthful face. The owner scolds the young man for his rudeness and questions his disheveled, pitiful state in public. Looking at his reflection in a mirror, the young man expresses bitter frustration with his current situation. The owner drags Thea away while the girl wonders if she actually helped a truly good person. Thea gasps in pure shock as she observes the young man's incredibly feminine and delicate facial features. Back at the tavern, the owner tells Thea to eat and the guests to wash up immediately. The group sits at the table as the owner points toward a bowl filled with cleaning water. The guest reacts with extreme hostility, asking if the owner intends to hit him with the cloth. He grumbles and swears while wiping his face, leaving Thea trembling and confused by his aggressive behavior. Thea nervously asks the guest if he really committed the theft the merchant accused him of earlier. The little girl warns the guest that being mean will result in a tiger taking them away. The guest screams in fury, taking great offense at being addressed by a female title by Thea. He angrily clarifies his gender as male and insults Thea while his feminine hair flows freely behind. The long-haired boy stands up, looking elegant and sparkling despite his angry and defensive posture toward them. He remains in a defensive stance, his feminine features contrasting sharply with his aggressive and defiant attitude. Thea stares in total bewilderment, her mind struggling to process the boy's confusingly pretty and feminine appearance. She stammers that it is her first time meeting a boy who looks exactly like a girl. Basto enters as the boy admits he stole the wallet back because it was originally his property. He explains the merchant was a fraud who tried to flee after stealing a mercenary group's payment. The mention of forming a mercenary court causes Thea and Basto to listen with sudden, deep interest. The boy laments his lack of options, stating he must be a mercenary to hunt for money. Thea realizes that forming a mercenary group would provide the dominion Basto needs to enter the capital safely. A brilliant light bulb appears over Thea's head as a perfect plan finally forms in her young mind. Thea jumps up and excitedly declares that she wants to form a mercenary corps with them both. The long-haired boy gives her a flat, unimpressed look, clearly doubting the child's sudden and bold suggestion. He yells at Thea, explaining that he needs professional experts to work with, not a small child. He brags about being an assassin and dismisses the idea of running a corps with a kid. Thea argues she has a legendary puppetman and insists that Mr. Hammer is an incredibly strong ally. The boy is confused by the name Hammer as Basto stands behind him and clears his throat. Thea excitedly points at the large man, identifying him to the boy as the powerful Mr. Hammer. Basto introduces himself by his full name and asks if the boy's mercenary plan is actually serious. The long-haired boy looks up at Basto with a skeptical expression, wondering about this massive newcomer's identity. Basto asserts his strength, claiming he is capable of conquering a magic stone alone without any help. He explains his loss of identification while emphasizing his extensive past experience as a professional elite mercenary. Basto mentions his solo conquest of a magic stone as Thee begs the boy to join them. The boy stares in disbelief, realizing that Basto's claim matches the news about a famous magic stone. He recalls the reports of the elite Deathhound group conquering the Briawood small magic stone recently. He remembers seeing a mercenary captain and a knight acting suspiciously friendly after the conquest was announced. The boy considers the Briawood stone, knowing only one mercenary group was officially credited for that victory. Thee screams that the other mercenary lied and stole the credit while Basto suffered through absolute hell. Basto remains focused on his goal, stating he simply needs a new identity to reach the capital. A person mentions Thee's father resides in the capital while looking at the blonde child. Bale is visibly confused by the mention of a father being in the distant capital.
Bale yells at Basto, realizing they aren't related because they look nothing like each other.
Bale observes the pair, thinking they look foolish but aren't currently being dishonest with him. Vision panels show shadowy figures betraying Basto by stealing his credit and his mercenary identification. Bale reflects on his own history of betrayal while walking toward a new opportunity for wealth. Bale considers his goal of earning money as he remembers happy children sharing a bag of potatoes. A frustrated sigh escapes Bale as he scratches his head, caught between caution and his needs. A heavy thud sounds as Bale slams his fist down, calling out to the muscular man. Bale Theodore introduces himself, demanding that his new partner keep up or be left behind. Basto accepts the terms, advising the boy to avoid becoming a burden during their joint mission. Thee asks excitedly if they are a team now, while Bale smirks at Basto's tough attitude. A happy shout escapes Thee as she jumps for joy at forming a new mercenary group. Bale complains about holding hands as the group walks through the lush green forest together. Thee shows off a branch, boasting about the strength of both Mr. Hammer and Pretty Bale. Bale is bewildered by Thee's excitement as she brags about her pink backpack's legendary status. Thee recalls her school glories, including winning a race and being the best at playing tag. A determined cheer sounds as Thee declares her intention to help them catch all the monsters. The small girl runs through the woods, telling her companions not to worry about her safety. Thee strikes a heroic pose with her branch, claiming that she is incredibly strong and brave. A soft rustle sounds as Basto's gloved hand grips Thee's strap to halt her energetic advance. Basto looks down at the child, firmly stating that she will not be fighting any monsters. Thee's face goes pale with shock as her dreams of being a monster hunter are crushed. Text reveals that the speaker had previously been convinced by the idea until this very moment. Basto questions Thee about her greatest fear, emphasizing that facing real monsters is serious work. A low growl sounds in Thee's imagination as she envisions a terrifying, sharp-toothed Tyrannosaurus Rex. Basto asserts that real monsters are far more frightening than anything the young child can imagine. A massive boom sounds as a fiery explosion representing the lethal danger of monsters fills the scene. Thee trembles in fear, calling out to her companions while clutching her backpack in the darkness. Glowing eyes loom in the shadows as a desperate cry of "No!" echoes through the dark forest. Thee drops her branch in total terror as Basto reiterates the extreme danger they will face. A tall, bearded man with a staff appears, having been hired to watch over the girl. Basto tells Asti to wait quietly with the elderly man while he and Bale move forward. Basto promises to return by dawn, mentioning Jax's recommendation of the reliable elderly man for childcare. Thee realizes she was too overconfident, admitting to herself that her father's warnings were actually right. A man in a black cap explains that monster types and attack methods are incredibly diverse. A sharp exclamation emphasizes that no one on this mission is allowed to act like a brat. Thee stands obediently in the sunset light, promising that she will wait quietly for their return. Bale laughs mockingly, teasing the little girl and warning her not to start crying while alone. A frustrated huff escapes Thee as several angry red icons appear above her embarrassed, blushing face. Thee shouts that she isn't a baby while Bale continues to poke fun at her age. Bale brings up how she cried and begged for her life during her first meeting with Basto. Thee throws a tantrum, insisting she is a child and not an immature baby while Bale mocks. Basto pulls Bale away to start the mission while the old man wishes them good luck. Thee waves a sad goodbye to Basto, calling him uncle with large, teary green eyes. Bale is outraged that he was ignored, demanding to know why she didn't say goodbye to him. Thee pouts and begrudgingly tells Bale to be careful as well during the dangerous monster raid. Bale smiles as they head into the forest, wondering about the child's true identity and motives. Basto and Bale discuss their suspicions about Thee potentially being a noble child hidden in secret. A cold wind howls as the mercenaries arrive at the entrance of the monster-filled Tenebrum case. Bale holds his lantern high, appearing genuinely baffled by the strange name Thee mentioned. Bale and Basto navigate a dark maze as Bale thinks the name Young Su is noble impossible. Bale questions the feasibility of locating anyone in the capital with such unusual and sparse information. Bale reflects on Basto's history, recalling how the man lost his family and became a mercenary. Watching Basto walk ahead, Bale identifies a golden opportunity if the man's combat skills are legitimate. They enter a warehouse where Bale notices small magic stones are sprouting sparsely in the darkness. Bale suggests they quickly raid the nearest magic stone at the entrance and immediately leave. A sudden tension fills the hallway as both mercenaries draw their weapons for an impending battle. Dark, jagged cracks begin to spiderweb across the wooden beams with an ominous purple glow. The intensity of the energy surges as larger, more violent fissures tear through the structural surroundings. Terrified, Bale shouts that the cracks are spreading from directly behind their current position.
Bale sprints ahead, realizing the massive scale of the cracks far exceeds a typical small stone.
Horror dawns on Bale as he realizes a dangerous medium magic stone is rapidly sprouting nearby. He screams for everyone to run as a colossal, glowing purple magic stone manifests before them.
The scene shifts to the dark forest where Grandpa Nordic maintains a watchful and somber vigil.
Thee sits outside the tent clutching her backpack, praying for Basto and Bale to be okay.
She holds a red jeweled locket, whispering a soft plea for her companion Kamang to wake up.
Thee gazes at the glowing locket, thinking about the many things she wants to tell it. A sudden bright explosion in the distance shocks Thee as the ground and sky seem to tremble. A massive boom sounds as a pillar of fire erupts, signaling a catastrophic event nearby.
Thee stares at the fiery destruction in total shock as a beam of energy strikes down.
A panicked shout calls out as a violent explosion rocks the area around the young child. Grandpa Nordic shields Thee as a fiery monster appears, admitting the situation has become extremely difficult. The terrifying wolf-like creature wreathed in flames lunges out of the darkness with glowing red eyes. Nordic blocks the monster's claws, urging Thee to hurry and run while he draws its attention. Gasping for breath, Thee sprints through the woods as her heart hammers with overwhelming fear. Memories of her friends in pain flash before her eyes as a violent impact shakes the earth. Bale and Basto struggle against the purple monsters while a giant, malicious eye looms over them. Shadows show the mercenaries and Grandpa Nordic being slowly overwhelmed by the relentless monster horde. A flashback shows a younger Thee looking sadly into a box of her few precious mementos. Her feet catch on the uneven grass and she falls face first while fleeing through the forest. A crushing wave of helplessness hits Thee as she laments her inability to do anything right. Tears fall as she cries out in despair, feeling as though she has absolutely nothing left. Thee clasps her hands together in a desperate prayer, begging for any god to hear her. She sobs uncontrollably, pleading that she never has to say another goodbye to those she loves. A vibrant green aura flares around Thee's hands as her emotional prayer manifests into physical power. From the depths of the earth, a massive skeleton with burning green eyes and aura rises. Back in the cave, a purple monster pins Bale to the ground, preparing for a lethal bite. Bale grinds his teeth in agony, bracing for the end as the monster's jaws loom closer. Basto lands a thunderous hammer strike, smashing the creature and saving Bale from its deadly grasp. Basto stumbles back and coughs up blood, reaching his physical limit as the intense battle continues. He stares at the magic stone, baffled by how quickly such a large power source manifested. Bale realizes they are hopelessly outnumbered as dozens of purple monsters pour out of the darkness. Bale prepares to drink a vial of poison, deciding to die on his own terms instead. A skeletal fist erupts in a flash of light, smashing the monsters and shocking the exhausted boy. A gargantuan skeletal arm reaches past the stunned Bale, targeting the remaining monsters in the cave. A group of glowing green skeletons appears, ruthlessly tearing the monster horde apart in a brutal counterattack. The relentless skeletal warriors continue their assault, overwhelming the once dominant monsters with ease. A powerful beam of energy slams into the ground, signaling a turning point in the battle. Bale sits in the dirt, exhausted and staring in stunned silence at the miraculous skeletal rescue. Bale stares in shock as he hears screams coming from deep within the dark ground. Basto shouts out to his partner while a sudden, audible gasp escapes the terrified boy's throat. Looking confused, Bale asks Basto if he is a mage, but the older man is baffled. Bale yells that he almost used his poison vial while sweating from the narrow, lethal escape. Basto wipes sweat from his face, questioning who exactly saved them if Bale was not responsible. A skeleton appears as text describes the legendary and dark nature of the necromancy magic. Bale and Basto exhaled in relief while standing together in the quiet moonlit forest clearing. A skeletal hand emerges from the earth, signaling that a terrifying magical presence is lurking nearby. Watching the skeletons, the mercenaries wonder about their objectives and why they were safe from death. A mysterious, glowing white orb of energy floats silently amidst the dark trees of the forest. A soft, pained sounds as Thea cries with her eyes squeezed shut and cheeks blushing. Surprising her companions, the little girl appears in the woods surrounded by her newly summoned skeletons. Thea calls out to Mr. Basto and Bale, her voice trembling with relief and lingering fear.
Holding a skull, Thea cries out that she is relieved they are both real and alive.
Thea sobs that she was terrified everyone would die while Bale and Basto watch in silence. A skeleton pets the child's head, prompting her to ask if they are truly safe now. Thea mentions that Grandpa Nordic is also here, crying out in relief that everything turned out well. The large, hollow-eyed skull of a skeleton looms in a close-up against the dark purple background. Thea scolds the skeletons for using bad words, mentioning they almost became bonehead friends with Bale. Basto insists it was just a joke, but Bale is left completely bewildered by the explanation. A lone skeletal hand reaches out from the soil, pointing its finger toward a specific direction. A quick huff sounds as a wounded Nordic arrives, being helped along by a helpful skeleton. Basto looks on with a grim expression, confirming that the person approaching is indeed Grandpa Nordic. The skeletons explain that they killed the monsters and gathered the necessary cores for the child. Nordic asks Bale if they are safe, and the boy confirms they are okay for now. Nordic observes the scene, concluding that the young child is definitely the one who summoned the skeletons. Basto agrees, noting they cannot even hear the skeletons' voices while the child communicates with them. Thea turns away from her companions to share a quiet, affectionate moment with a skeletal skull. Thea tells Basto that her bony friends gathered monster cores to help them pass the test. Several glowing, multicolored magic stones sparkle brightly against a soft pink and white decorative background. Bale realizes with horror that the rift and stones are gone because the girl cleared the siege. Basto notes that the cores were paid out properly as Thea happily gathers the glowing magic stones. Nordic reflects solemnly, identifying the child as someone born with an incredibly rare and powerful magic power. Nordic tells the girl she is amazing, but Thea is confused about what having an ability means. Nordic explains the typical age for mages, while Bale shouts that she is the absolute strongest. Thea looks up with a puzzled expression, questioning the idea of her being the strongest of all. Thea's eyes widen in absolute astonishment as she reacts to a sudden and surprising new revelation. A memory of a smiling man in a black cap appears alongside Thea, emphasizing the word strongest. Thea strikes a determined pose, loudly declaring that blood is truly much thicker than any water. Bale, Basto, and Nordic all wonder why she used that specific proverb so suddenly and strangely. Looking nervous and overwhelmed, Thea glances around the dark warehouse while clutching her pink school backpack. Thea whispers that her father is actually the strongest person in the entire world. Thea claims her father is a holy knight, prompting a shocked and suspicious reaction from Bale. Basto thinks back to finding the child, suspecting she might be much more than a lost girl. Visual text explains the fundamental opposition between the holy power of knights and the mana of mages. Text highlights the impossibility of a child born to holy knight parents ever managing to awaken mana. Thea stands in the dark warehouse, curiously tilting her head as she observes a skeletal skull. Bale reflects on how children with opposite powers are seen as legendary bringers of ruin and disaster. Bale thinks there is only one specific elite family in the Empire known for producing strongest knights. Glowing light fills a noble estate as the narration identifies the prestigious House of Luminen. Basto and Bale exchange a look of silent shock as Thea prepares to reveal more. Thea hesitantly admits she has been keeping a significant part of her history a secret. A flashback shows Thea and her father living happily in their modest one-room cottage. Bale expresses total disbelief that such a powerful family would reside in such a small home. Thea animatedly recounts her tiny bathroom and how freezing the water was during the winter. A soft glow surrounds Thea as she gazes fondly at the skeletal skull in her hands. Thea explains that her father eventually departed, leaving Bale and Basto looking visibly shaken. She holds her locket, explaining that she was alone in the woods until Kamang went to sleep. Bale realizes she summoned a permanent spirit, while Thea vows Kamang will help find her father. Thea tears about going to the capital, unbothered that her father might not recognize her. Outraged, the mercenaries demand to know what kind of father would ever forget his own daughter. Thea clarifies that a time reversal spell caused her father to lose all memory of her existence. Sobbing, the girl insists it was an accident caused by magic erasing her from his mind. A sudden, heavy thud sounds as the men struggle to process the child's tragic backstory. Bale and Basto whisper in horror, disgusted by the heartless cruelty inflicted upon such a child. The narration identifies the grand, towering palace as the home of the virtuous holy knight Luminen. To protect Thee and her immense mana, her father fled their noble home in the past. They hid away in a stable, living a humble life to escape the notice of the powerful knights. Despite their isolation, a mysterious figure apparently refused to allow their peaceful life to continue. Thee's father was magically mind-wiped, and she was left to die alone in the dark woods. The helpless child sat abandoned in the forest, her noble family having cast her aside completely. Realizing the truth, Bale and Basto stare at the floor in a state of absolute horror. Chibi Thee looks incredibly sad while clutching her skull, her small frame slumped in the dark. Enraged, Bale grabs Nordic's collar, declaring those responsible to be more monstrous than any beast. A single, sharp drip sounds in the warehouse as Basto begins to outline a new plan. Basto advises hiding Thee's identity until they can safely approach the dangerous House of Luminen. Bale agrees, swearing that they cannot allow such a vile, heartless act to go unpunished. Bale shouts for Thee's attention after the older men call for calm and careful neutrality. Bale places a hand on Thee's head, shouting that age shouldn't stop her from joining him. He tries to explain that she lacks a precedent for joining, leaving the young girl confused. Bale shouts that despite her strength, she cannot be officially registered in the mercenary group. He promises to find a way to help her search for her father regardless of registrations. Basto warmly thanks her for saving their lives, promising to repay their massive debt to her. Nordic gives a subtle, respectful nod, signaling his full support for the child's upcoming journey. Touched by their loyalty, Thee begins to blush as a warm, affectionate feeling washes over her. Basto warns her that her necromancy must remain strictly hidden from anyone else they encounter. Bale adds that evil people would surely try to exploit her power before she finds her dad. Thea rejects the idea of hiding in a bag, determined to find her father and come on. The young girl pauses, contemplating the strange and difficult necessity of concealing her true self. Like a bunny and a worm hiding from predators, Thea considers the mechanics of survival. Thea strikes a fierce pose, declaring she wants to look scary so nobody messes with her. A sudden realization hits Thea as she connects her frightening power with her need for safety. She remembers a village grandmother being a secret powerhouse, inspiring her to form a new plan. Thea calls out to Basto, her voice filled with excitement as a new idea takes shape. Raising a hand, Thea joyfully announces that she has come up with a truly brilliant idea. Basto, Bale, and Nordic stare at her with bewildered expressions, unable to guess her thoughts. The sprawling, walled capital city shines under the bright sun as the travelers finally arrive. A low, impressed breath sounds as the group walks through the massive gates of the capital. Citizens stare in total shock as the imposing mercenaries walk through the capital city streets.
Basto suggests making Thea the group's figurehead boss as a way to honor their unpayable debt.
Thea holds Nordic's staff, looking ahead with a focused and determined expression. Thea excitedly declares that she will become a hidden powerhouse as flowers bloom around her. A clinking sound rings out as a large sack spills out several glowing multicolored magic stones. The black-haired man is shocked to see a mid-sized magic stone from a Lycolops monster. Bale lists 3 Lycolops, 18 Belios, and 2 Inferno Winds as enough for the registration test. The black-haired man looks suspiciously at Nordic and the small hooded girl standing behind Bale. The suspicious man demands to know who they are and if they stole the valuable monster course. A shout from below calls the man rude, startling him as the sound rises from near his feet. Thea demands respect, loudly declaring herself to be the great archmage and a powerful necromancer. The man stares in silence at the small hooded figure standing beside the large wooden table. He is completely bewildered, wondering if the person standing before him is truly just a young child. A loud crack echoes through the air as the ground suddenly shatters under an invisible pressure. A huge skeleton suddenly appears behind Thea, causing the man to scream in absolute terror. Terrified onlookers scream in horror as a creature of darkness appears. Thea commands her creation to come behind her, her face partially hidden by her dark, shadowy hood. A sudden whoosh sounds as the massive skeleton looms protectively over the small hooded girl. The man stammers in disbelief that she's summoned a skeleton, desperately demanding to know her true name. Basto glares with glowing yellow eyes, offended that the man would insolently ask for his master's name. Thea calmly tells Basto to stop, instructing him to just leave the matter alone for now. Bale trembles while trying to suppress a laugh while Basto remains serious and focused on the man. In a memory, Basto questions if the young girl can truly pull off such a difficult performance. Thea insists she can, though Bale warns her that a necromancer king should avoid speaking childishly. Bale suggests thinking of lines and using rougher clothes, prompting Thea to promise she will stay serious. Bale coaches the girl to use a strong, commanding voice when addressing the knights during their registration. Putting on her act, Thea asks the terrified man if he truly wishes to know her name. A loud laugh sounds as Bale finds her twisted tongue hilarious, while Basto looks on with annoyance. Thea remains determined to act like a middle-aged man, ordering her skeleton friend to look even scarier. Thea declares that nobody can handle her true name, identifying herself solely as the Necromancer King. The knights all tremble in fear as the girl asks if her terrifying introduction was sufficient. The official reviews the mercenary registration form for the group of 4 and proceeds with the process. The official asks the group to wait a moment while Bale and Basto sit together. Bale cheers that the plan worked perfectly, while Basto praises the young girl for her excellent performance. Bale notes that the knights were too intimidated to pry, making Thea feel like a powerhouse. Nordic expresses his relief, mentioning he had prepared a backup plan just in case they were rejected. Nordic asks if he can stay with them longer, feeling his help isn't enough of a repayment. Bale says the more the merrier and asks Basto if he is okay with the decision. Basto agrees, insisting he must stay to repay the Necromancer King for saving his life. Nordic reminds them that they must decide on an official name for their newly formed mercenary group. Thea panics, realizing she was so focused on her acting that she forgot to think of a name. Thea hums in deep thought while a small bird appears near her as she contemplates the name. Thea tentatively suggests the Quail class as their official name, surrounded by cute little bird drawings. A loud thump sounds as Bale slams the table, objecting to the incredibly cute and childish name. The gray-haired official speaks to the group, addressing the small girl by her chosen title. He confirms the identification number is issued, listing her as a dark attribute mage for the registration. The official asks if he can gather some additional information about the mysterious and powerful Necromancer King. In a memory, Basto advises that she doesn't have to answer questions outside of their prepared lines. Basto explains that the Empire needs mercenaries for the siege and cannot force them to reveal secrets. Bale and Nordic discuss how it is common for many mercenaries to hide or forge their identities. Thea excitedly suggests they simply act like they are hiding their identity if anyone asks too many questions. Reverting to her intimidating persona, Thea reminds the official that she has already given her name. Thea asks why she's in this form while the official stammers about making a mistake. The official pleads for mercy while the young girl breathes a silent, heavy sigh of relief. The official explains it is regrettable, but instructions from above prohibit giving an identification number to Basto. He details Carl Werbin's report of illegal acts and Basto fleeing with a large amount of money. Stunned silence falls over the group as they process the heavy weight of the false accusations. Basto stammers in disbelief, asking what he supposedly stole and what illegal things he has done. The official notes the higher-ups claimed Basto's behavior made it impossible to continue his mercenary activities. Basto slams the desk, shouting that Carl committed those horrible things and extorted the members' pay. He shouts about the Paladin Order erasing his number without verification and asks if it's fair. Basto screams in agony over losing the chance to protect his family from his own fate. Thea wonders who the mercenary leader is siding with to allow such a grave injustice. Bale yells in a rage, demanding to know how much was taken in bribes to sabotage them. The official looks down in somber silence as the weight of his earlier words hangs heavily. A dark realization hits Thea as she fixates on the corrupting power of a single bribe. Someone shouts for attention as a sudden distraction captures the eyes of the nearby bystanders. In a memory, Thea recalls news of a man denying bribery while citizens discuss the cash. Her memory continues as women discuss bribes shifting from apple boxes to expensive luxury bags. The young girl looks at a drawing of an apple, confused by the world's strange corruption. Thea realizes Carl used bribes to control people and is now bullying Uncle Basto. The official sighs and admits that he is already aware of the group's incredibly difficult situation. The official explains Carl bribed the appointed commander, while Bale notes the Emperor personally chose him. The scene shifts as the group follows the official further into the building for more privacy. He reveals the commander interferes too much while reviewing the registration papers for the group's members. Bale scoffs, asking why it matters if people talk if the corrupt men never get fired. The official agrees that blocking new registrations is a problem stemming from the received large sum. An oppressive darkness fills the air as the group realizes the true depth of the corruption. Basto realizes they just want money, while Bale and Nordic react with absolute disgust and shock. Basto trembles with rage, lamenting that Carl snatched their reward money and ruined his family's vengeance. Bale tells the leader to head inside for now, trying to maintain order despite his anger. Thea suddenly screams out, demanding to know exactly how much the meanie Carl paid the official. The official stammers in total confusion as the small hooded girl suddenly interrupts the tense atmosphere. Thea slams her staff, comparing Carl to a dog and repeating her demand for the bribe amount. The official mentions hearing they received a crate full of banknotes, causing Thee's eye to glow. Thee kicks the air, vowing to win by offering something even better than a crate of cash. Reaching into her pink backpack, she pulls out a mountain of glowing, multicolored jewels and necklaces.
Thee presents the welcome gifts her monster friends gave her, her gaze determined and fierce.
In a flashback, skeletons offer the crying girl jewels, urging her to help her mercenary friends.
She runs away from the skeletons, calling for Basto and Bale while her friends offer assistance. Thee commands the official to tell them that the great necromancer king will give even more. Thee berates the official for selling his conscience for cash while she hands over luxury goods. Basto, Bale, and Nordic stare in absolute slack-jawed shock at the girl's sudden, extravagant display. The official officially hands over Basto Perix's new identification number, the registration finally completed.
Basto stammers in shock as he realizes that Thee's absurd plan actually worked for him.
The official nods, noting they finally completed the registration and just need the mercenary group's name. Bale panics and shouts that they cannot use the name Quail Class for their group. Thee presents the form proudly, her staff in hand as she reveals the name she chose.
Bale asks how she came up with Agabert, while Nordic looks on with quiet, surprised approval.
Thee explains Agabert is just Chavaga, the top name on the ranking board, spelled backwards.
The official accepts the name Agabert and wishes the Necromancer King luck in her future.
Thee glows with pride, celebrating that they are a mercenary group and can finally go for real.
Basto looks down in somber silence, his face shadowed by a sense of heavy melancholy.
Basto stares blankly as Thee looks up at him with wide, concerned, and sparkling green eyes. Thee explains that just as her father once did, she has now helped her Uncle Bastar. Bale whispers that she cannot break character yet, while Thee promises to stay focused on her act. A gentle hand rests on Basto's shoulder as he suggests they all go eat something delicious. Basto pledges to find Thee's father, acknowledging her by the grand title of the Necromancer King. A massive wooden ship sits docked in a bustling harbor under a clear, bright blue sky. Livia runs through the street, shouting loudly for everyone to hear the sudden, major breaking news. Livia reports that a new group passed registration, but she halts when describing their mysterious leader. Livia argues with Victor while Tessiton remains seated at the table, his face buried in his arms. Tessiton groans from the table, asking why trivial nonsense must interrupt his much-needed moment of rest. A formal introduction presents Tessiton Baronio, the striking and green-eyed leader of the top-ranked mercenary group, Travaga. Livia and Victor continue their loud bickering, both identified as members of the elite Travaga mercenary corps. Alaric suggests that an oddball has appeared, his hand holding a silver chain with a glowing jewel. Tessiton looks up with a sharp, calculating gaze, his attention finally piqued by the ongoing conversation. Alaric, a mage within Travaga, notes that the newcomer is a remarkably powerful mage themselves. Nearby patrons are shocked, questioning how a single mage could have formed their own entire mercenary corps. Victor contemplates the extreme rarity of mages in Talokium and the immense talent required to reach that realm. A text panel explains that mages are often considered monsters due to their terrifyingly immense innate power. Alaric describes the mage's darkness attribute, showing a silhouette of the Necromancer King and a skeletal horde. Victor notes that necromancy was previously only a theoretical magic, questioning if such power is truly real. Tessiton holds his golden cup, listening intently as the details of the mysterious new leader are revealed.
Alaric reveals he learned of the mage through the Holy Knights network, noting they appeared as a captain.
Livia celebrates the massive scoop, while Alaric admits that a mage-led corps is a complete anomaly. Tessiton reads the name Agabert on the paper, his expression shifting into one of deep curiosity. Tessiton identifies Basto Perix as the former vice-captain of the Deathhound group, recognizing his silhouette. The black-haired leader flips through the paper, searching for the specific name of the mysterious necromancer mage. A sudden look of confusion crosses Tessiton's face as he realizes there is no name written down. Tessiton bursts into hysterical laughter, realizing the mage is hiding their true identity under a theatrical alias. Tessiton finds the situation extremely interesting, a wide and mischievous grin spreading across his handsome face. Laughter fills the room as the group discusses the Necromancer King and the lunatic nature of the alias. Tessiton warns his teammates to get nervous so they aren't overshadowed by the creepy and powerful newcomer. Reaper, the rank 2 captain of the Grim Reaper Corps, shouts in a fury at Tessiton's cocky attitude. Descriptions confirm Tessiton as the world's strongest mercenary, whose group Travaga has never dropped from rank 1. Tessiton taunts Reaper, asking if he thinks he can take the top spot if a mistake is made. Tessiton pokes Reaper's head, mockingly advising him that simply working hard won't make him number 1. Walking away, Tessiton threatens to leave Reaper without a single mana stone if he continues to be annoying. Reaper screams in absolute vein-popping rage as the insufferable Tessiton casually departs from the scene. Bright, warm sunlight streams through a large arched window, casting a peaceful glow into the quiet room. Thee sits on the floor, happily munching on a cookie while basking in the cozy morning sunlight. Bale asks if the cookies are truly that good, a small label noting that Thee is happy.
Thee looks puzzled when Bale addresses her as the Necromancer King while she is relaxing.
Thee exclaims that when they are alone, she should simply be called by her actual name. Bale suppresses a laugh as Thee continues her adorable act, struggling to remain serious and focused. Bale pokes Thee's cheek, asking if she truly likes the grandiose nickname of Necromancer King that much. Thee explains that the most powerful characters always have epic nicknames like Warrior of Tremors or Royal Fang. Children gather around a boy holding a game console, admiring his ultimate king god general level of strength.
Thee declares that while she is normally herself, she becomes the Necromancer King Astia with her persona.
Bale wonders if his companion is slightly foolish, while Thee looks at him with a disgruntled expression.
Thee's eyes light up with joy as she spots Basto and Nordic finally arriving at their location.
Basto asks Nordic if his meeting with the man named Vale went well earlier. Thee excitedly notices the bundle Basto carries, and he reveals the Agabert Mercenary Corps' official cloak. Thee squeals with delight over the pink mascot Totnapang, finding the colorful design absolutely adorable. Bale shouts in disbelief, demanding to know why they put a pink bug on their uniform. A sudden crack sounds as Thee freezes in horror, utterly devastated by Bale calling her creation a bug.
Basto explains that to hide Thee's identity, they must respect her authority while she plays the captain.
Bale argues that they could have chosen something cool instead of a moldy, bug-like mascot design. Thee trembles in despair, repeating Bale's cruel words about the moldy bug and feeling deeply hurt. A memory shows Thee and Nordic working hard on the drawing, with Thee insisting Totnapang is superior. Bale tries to erase the mascot with ink, prompting Thee to scream and bite her own. Bale complains about the spit and compares Thee to a dog, while Thee asserts she's a child.
Bale yells that she is just doing her job, while the crying Thee clings to her cloak.
A heavy clatter sounds as the ink bottle falls, spilling its dark contents across the floor. Bale stares at the blood on her hand in shock as a dark wing suddenly emerges. A small black dragon appears, scolding Bale for her insubordination after being told to get up. Thee gasps in surprise while Basto and Nordic stare at the blood on the gray-haired woman's hand. Thee stammers in shock as she recognizes the little black dragon she calls Blackie standing before her. Bale asks if Thee ordered the creature's attack, but the terrified girl frantically denies meaning for it. Basto places a hand on the cloak, telling Bale to stop interrogating the small, frightened child. Basto reminds Bale that these newly awakened powers are hard to control, despite the transgression against them. Basto grips Bale's shoulder, warning her not to do anything regrettable because she would certainly lose. A quick snort of laughter sounds as Blackie smirks while the adults argue in the background. Bale realizes the creature is laughing, while Thee grabs her arm, begging them not to fight. Thee grabs Blackie by the head, vowing to take him to the room of truth for punishment. Thee looms over the black dragon with a dark expression, prepared to deliver a stern lesson. Thee recalls a lesson about never hurting friends after a girl got pushed on the playground. The memory explains that accidents require a sad sticker for release from the room of truth. Thee declares that hurting people on purpose is different, scolding Blackie for his behavior toward Bale. A soft thud sounds as Blackie casually flops over, surprising Thee with his lack of remorse. Thee scolds Blackie for lying down, but he dismisses her, shocking her by refusing to apologize. Thee insists people must never be hurt, but Blackie points out she bit Bale as well.
Thee stammers that she didn't bite hard, while Blackie remains unbothered on the floor.
A gentle voice tells Thee that she actually did well despite her current internal conflict. Thea looks up as the voice praises her for biting the enemy and reaching the bait. Blackie sighs, admitting he feels pathetic for needing hibernation after twisting the timeline for their journey. Thea notes messing with dimensions requires enormous power, while Blackie tells her she can rest too.
A silhouette of the dragon sits amidst a field of fading, glowing floral patterns.
Blackie advises Thea to keep the Necromancer King persona to hide her true identity in his. Blackie suggests they let others keep believing he is just a permanent summoned creature for their protection. Thea wonders if Blackie is also hiding his true self for a very important reason like hers. Thea resolves that they must protect each other's secrets while they navigate this dangerous new world. Thea crawls toward Blackie, promising never to reveal to anyone that he is actually a legend.
A sudden flash of light catches Thea's eye as she looks at her small companion.
A black-haired boy with Annabelle ears appears, introducing himself to the stunned Thea as Rucarian.
Thea's green eyes sparkle with immense wonder at the sight of the boy's true human form.
Thee sheds tears of emotion while resting her head against the small black dragon's forehead.
A sudden rustle sounds as Thee lunges forward and pulls the dark-haired boy into a tight hug. Thee cries while thanking Rukarion for using all of his strength to help her and her friends. Rukarion looks surprised by the sudden affection, his red eyes wide as he remains in her embrace. Thee wipes her runny nose while Rukarion sits silently, seemingly unsure of how to react. Rukarion plans to enter the capital tomorrow and help find Thee's father so she can repay the favor. Thee offers her bag as a resting place and suggests the alias Blackie to hide Rukarion's identity.
Thea leads the skeptical boy away, insisting he apologize to Bale for his earlier rude behavior.
A striking close-up of Rukarion's intense red eye reflects his inner mysterious thoughts. Rukarion identifies the power that awakened him as Thee's magic while the young girl cries out.
Thea runs back to the group, presenting a jewel and relaying Blackie's apology to Bale.
Bale remains unimpressed by the gesture, noting the supposed apologizer lacks a mouth to speak. Bale reluctantly accepts the jewel, but worries she might lose a finger accepting such an apology.
Thea clings to Bale's leg, promising not to bite again while the men watch on.
Basto readies the group, reminding Thea to assume her Necro King persona once they depart.
An old couple stands outside a quaint, multi-story building under a clear blue sky.
Clad in matching white cloaks, the group begins their long journey toward the kingdom's capital. The mercenaries navigate a crowded marketplace while hiding their unique identities under their official uniforms. Thea looks on in awe as the group travels deeper into the territory of Tallow. Walking through a barren wasteland, Bale suggests they should have rented a carriage for the journey. Fasto emphasizes the need for frugality, massed against the elements during their long desert trek. Bale laments their lack of funds, noting a previous bribe depleted their entire collective savings. The group discusses the desolate state of the land and the appearance of mana stones years ago. Nordic marches tirelessly through the shifting sands, his age belying his impressive physical stamina. Bale marvels at the old man's energy while noting the young girl has already collapsed. Basto carries the sleeping child, deciding to keep moving while she is tucked away. A warm memory surfaces of Thea's black-haired father gently tending to her hair at home. The young girl listens intently as her father explains their sudden and accidental arrival. Her father admits his own confusion regarding the mysterious circumstances that changed their lives. Thea encourages her father with bright-eyed optimism, certain that they will find a way home. Her father embraces her, promising they will return together after their long and difficult journey. Thea cherishes the memory of her father's kindness before they were separated in this world. After wandering the woods alone, Thea recalls the day she first encountered her new friends. She draws comfort from her father's past words while navigating the strangeness of the present. In the quiet of the night, her father looks out a window, burdened by hardship. The man's weary face is illuminated by starlight as he reflects on his missing daughter. Sleeping peacefully, Thea remains unaware of the long and arduous journey still ahead of them.
A silent plea echoes through the darkness as the girl yearns to reunite with her dad.
Dreaming of home, the girl promises to bring back treasures for her beloved, missing father. Image 785. The group approaches a new destination as the first light of dawn touches the horizon. They arrive at Fell City, a bustling port town located on the capital's outer edge. Nordic observes that the familiar city remains unchanged despite the many years that have passed. Bale vents her exhaustion, shocked by the elderly man's relentless and superior physical endurance. Basto suggests finding an inn, while Nordic recommends a place that accepts credit for their stay.
They arrive at the Red Glove Inn, a popular hub for mercenaries and potential information.
Nordic heads inside the establishment to secure lodging for the tired and weary travelers.
Bale checks on the sleeping girl, acknowledging the toll the rough journey has taken.
A humorous flashback reveals the group struggling to pull Fee from a deep sandpit. The adults try to maintain the child's dignity as other mercenaries begin to pass them. Basto waits patiently at the entrance, noting that Nordic is taking a while inside. The group enters the crowded inn, their matching cloaks drawing gazes from the other patrons. The red-haired innkeeper informs them that no rooms are available yet, though a guest is checking out. Nordic chuckles while Bale demands to know the reason for the delay in their stay. The keeper explains that the guest is taking a morning boat and should return shortly. A single sturdy boot steps onto the floor, announcing a significant and powerful new arrival. The innkeeper announces the arrival of Tessiton, leaving the group stunned by the man's presence. The renowned Tessiton greets the innkeeper, mocking the business boom during this hectic peak season. A tired yawn stretches across the black-haired man's face, signaling his lack of interest. Tessiton nonchalantly walks past the group, heading toward the stairs with a casual air. Bale's eyes widen with a mix of dread and curiosity as she evaluates the stranger's nature.
A crushing sense of pressure fills the hall, though the man simply stands there quietly.
Tessiton glances back, his green eyes possessing a depth that unnerves those who watch him.
A close-up reveals his intense gaze, reflecting a man who has seen many battlefields.
The group stares at his back, overwhelmed by the aura radiating from the passing mercenary. A red-haired subordinate frantically calls for his leader, announcing that their boat has arrived. Tessiton responds lazily to the summons, dismissing the rush as he prepares to leave. A heavy thud echoes as the large wooden doors of the inn swing shut behind them. Basto and Nordic discuss the man's legendary, bizarre swordsmanship, while Bale questions the truth. Rudy chuckles while smoking his pipe, confirming that the rumors about Tessiton are mostly true. The innkeeper shrugs off the request for more details, focused on his business and rooms. A warm, glowing memory of Thee's father appears, his kind smile lighting up the scene. Thee dreams of her father arriving at an inn, seeking a room for them both. Waking with a soft murmur, the young girl blinks as her dream fades away. Thee sits up in bed, surprised by the unfamiliar room before Basto reassures her. Nordic points out the window, showing the girl the vibrant and busy Fell City. Basto and the others prepare to leave, telling Thee to stay safely in her room. A soft click sounds as the door closes, leaving the small girl sitting alone. The group gathers information in the dining hall, asking about the Luminen family or Kim Young-soo. Thee leans out the window, mesmerized by the beautiful city her father once described. Humming a cheerful tune, the girl watches the massive ships docked in the port. A man in the inn scoffs at the unfamiliar name, claiming he's never heard of him.
A loud bang sounds as an angry mercenary slams the table, shouting at Basto.
Basto stares back with calm intensity, refusing to be intimidated by the man's sudden outburst. Bale shouts back, telling the loud man to shut up if he has no information. Smirking, Bale taunts the man into speaking by questioning his actual knowledge of the family. The man falls for the bait, drinking deeply as he prepares to tell everything.
Thea's attention is caught by someone moving through the crowded streets below her window.
A black-haired man in a gray cloak walks past, identical to her missing father.
Overcome with emotion, Thea gasps as she realizes she has finally found her dad.
The cloaked figure continues walking away, disappearing into the tense crowd at the port. Scrambling out of the room, Thea races down the stairs in a desperate chase. The girl looks out at the blue rooftops, trying to track her father's path. Thea runs toward the harbor, weaving through the busy streets with single-minded determination. A soft gasp escapes her as she stops, her eyes fixed on the man ahead. Tears stream down her face as she calls out to her father's broad back. A legendary sword represents the power and status of the elite Luminen knight family. The mercenary explains that the Luminen household is led by Valentus and his 4 sons. He details the impressive roles and titles held by the first 3 prominent sons. Bale scowls at the man's words, unimpressed by the prestige of the noble house. The mercenaries argue over the details, questioning the legitimacy of the information being shared. The storyteller reveals that the 4th son is a mystery, with no one knowing his whereabouts. He speculates that the missing son married in secret and fled to start a life. He pushes through the legs of the harbor crowd, searching for a path forward.
A realization hits that the timeline for a 4-year-old child simply doesn't make sense.
Running with all her might, the small girl bumps into a traveler on the docks. Bale considers the mystery, trying to reconcile the stories with the child they are protecting. While chasing the man, Thea accidentally bumps into a traveler who dismisses the small child. The scene shifts to the towering masts of a large ship preparing to depart the port. Thea races toward the harbor with desperate hope, yearning to finally reunite with her father. Reaching the edge of the dock, she cries out for her dad as the ship pulls away. On the departing vessel, the black-haired man stands by the railing, looking back toward the shore. A close-up reveals the stranger is actually Tessiton, his green eyes showing a cold, detached expression. Thea reaches out with tears streaming down her face, convinced the departing man is her lost parent. Tessitan's intense green eyes stare back for a brief moment as the ship continues to depart. A fleeting memory of her father's genuine, warm smile contrasts sharply with the stranger's icy gaze. A realization of the stranger's different identity hits Thea, leaving her shocked and deeply heartbroken. The ship disappears into the distance, leaving the young girl standing alone on the vast harbor. A sudden rhythmic splash sounds as the ocean waves lap against the dock where Thea stands. Overcome with grief and abandonment, the girl collapses onto the stone floor, wailing for her dad. A system notification identifies the head of the powerful Luminen family as Valentus Luminen. Huddled on the ground, Thea wonders if her father secretly started a new life without her. Back at the inn, the mercenary rejects the theory, citing Valentus's legendary devotion to his wife. He details the famous love story of Valentus and his wife, Eleonora, known as Richard Saintus. Bale scoffs at the man's idealistic view, arguing that the private reality of marriage is hidden. The mercenary woman vents her cynicism, questioning who most often requests poison for a cheating husband.
She reflects on the perfect facades nobles maintain while secretly plotting to kill each other.
Basto and Bale continue their discussion until Nordic suddenly bursts into the room in a panic. The old man frantically announces that Thee has vanished, leaving the rest of the group stunned. Basto and Bale react with immediate shock, realizing the gravity of losing the child they protect. The mercenaries race through the crowded city streets, searching every corner for any sign of Thee. Nordic questions a local townswoman about the missing child, but she offers no helpful information. Huffing and puffing, Nordic informs Basto that someone saw a girl walking alone near the docks.
Basto is filled with dread, realizing he failed to ensure Thee stayed safely in her room.
He pushes himself to run even faster, terrified of the dangers lurking near the open sea. A desperate plea for her safety fills his mind as he nears the harbor area alone.
The trio arrives at the waterfront, their eyes scanning the desolate stone paths for the girl.
They search past the stacked cargo barrels, fearing the worst as they approach the water's edge.
The group stops dead in their tracks upon finding Thee's discarded white cloak lying on the ground. Fear grips their hearts as they shout her name into the wind, searching for a response. They find Thee lying huddled on the cold stone, weeping as she remains lost in sorrow. Thai laments her situation, fearing that her father may have truly forgotten her or moved on. The cold, green eyes of the stranger on the ship linger in her mind as a painful reminder. She remembers her father's promise of love, wondering if he would now find her presence annoying. Basto gently retrieves the sobbing child, his face reflecting a mixture of relief and deep concern. A baby cries, letting out a loud, heartbroken wail that echoes through the quiet dock area. A soft click sounds as the wooden door to their room is finally secured for the night. Bale complains about the noise, worried that Thee will lose her voice from wailing so much. The dark-haired woman looks down with an annoyed expression, calling the child a silly brat. Bale mocks the girl's supposed title, noting the contrast between a lord and this crying child. Nordic asks about their progress investigating the Luminen family, seeking any new leads on Thee's father. Basto analyzes the facts, noting Volantis' constant public presence contradicts Thee's story of their life. A visual depicts Volantis on a battlefield, highlighting his presence in the Magic Stone campaign. Bale questions the memory wipe theory, doubting anyone would dare mess with the Luminen patriarch's mind. A heavy silence falls over the room as the group realizes their current leads are failing. Nordic bows his head in deep thought, reconsidering everything they know about the mysterious Holy Night. A final notification warns the group not to rely too heavily on the strongest Holy Night clue. Bale suspects the name is a fake, while Nordic notes the girl's honesty despite their lack of clues. Nordic suggests gathering more specific information about her father as the small girl lies there weeping. Basto looks on with a somber expression as the old man continues to discuss their next move. Bale wonders about the fate of the name Agavert if the girl successfully reunites with her father. An oppressive darkness swirls with purple energy, signaling a shift into a chaotic, distant memory. A frantic command to protect the child echoes through the jagged, lightning-streaked purple atmosphere of a battle. Livia screams in the pink-hued chaos while Thee recognizes her father's voice from her distant past. Thee struggles with a paralyzing sensation as a sudden, sharp thud echoes through her hazy mind. Livia calls out to Alaric in desperation as a blinding light erupts across the devastated, blood-stained battlefield. A terrifying, one-eyed demon looms over the group, its presence punctuated by a deep, guttural roar sounding. Alaric, bloodied and desperate, yells for Livia to take the young lady and flee the encroaching monsters. Ignoring her hesitation, Alaric demands she prioritize the child's safety over his own life in the rift. A heavy, rhythmic thud sounding follows as the wounded man pushes the white-wrapped bundle into Livia's arms. Livia runs through the chaos, promising the wide-eyed baby that she has nothing to worry about. A series of rapid, splashing thuds sounding marks their desperate escape through the dangerous rocky terrain. Collapsing onto the hard ground, the red-haired woman curses under her breath as her strength finally fades. Livia gasps for air, realizing they must escape the rift as the baby feels her cold skin. Thee's father rushes to the dying woman, shouting her name as the girl realizes her dad arrived. Livia offers a tearful apology to her commander, lamenting her failure to keep the young lady safe. The commander takes the child while Thee wonders if the white-haired man died in the battle. Livia smiles weakly as she passes away, urging her commander to leave her behind and escape. The commander reflects on his comrades, Basto and Alaric, while holding his child close in the gloom. Livia's final wish is for Thee to grow up healthy and stay happy with her father always. A soft, final thud sounding occurs as the commander tells the baby to be happy and smile. Walking into the darkness, the man reassures the crying child that they will soon reach safety together. A monstrous, shadowy dragon looms in the purple mist behind the departing man, its eyes glowing fiercely. Thee's internal fear grows as she realizes the sheer number of monsters threatening her father's life. A sharp, gasping breath sounding wakes the girl as she sits up in bed, overcome by shock. Thee blinks in confusion, wondering why the dream felt so real as she looks around the room.
The girl questions if the vivid nightmare was truly just a dream, her green eyes wide with lingering fear.
Thee recalls her father mentioning Basto as an old comrade, connecting the dream to her actual memories.
A realization hits the girl that the scenes she witnessed might be memories from when she was a baby.
She remembers her father mentioning an accident while braiding her hair, wondering if the dream explained it.
Thee's mind swirls with confusion as she recalls her father's claim of being a lowly holy knight. A tear falls as she wonders why the woman in her dream referred to her father as commander. The scene shifts back to the harbor where Thee stood alone, hoping to find the man she seeks.
The black-haired boy with cat ears asked Thee if she found the man she was looking for.
A close-up of the boy's intense red eyes reveals his concern as he waits for her response.
A soft, heartbroken sob escapes the girl, her face crumpling as the weight of reality hits. Thee admits to Kamung that his warnings were right, her tears flowing freely as she speaks to him.
A memory of a small, winged black dragon sitting beside baby Thee appears in a warm, glowing light. Wiping her eyes, the girl laments her situation and wonders what she should do next to find her dad.
The boy pulls Thee into a comforting hug as she cries out about her desperate desire to see him.
A close-up captures the tender moment as the girl buries her face in her companion's shoulder, weeping.
A rhythmic sniffle sounding fills the quiet room as the two children remain huddled together on the bed.
A golden locket floats in the stars as Kameng explains he could hear their voices while he slept.
He describes how her laughter brought him joy, while her tears felt like the world was breaking apart. A memory shows the small dragon nuzzling the crying baby, driven by a deep urge to stop her tears.
The boy identifies himself by his true name, Aside, while looking at her with a single glowing eye. Aside explains Chibi, Thea, and Aside float in a starry void, discussing how fate guides human lives. Back in the room, Aside asks if Thea understands that her father's path is predetermined. Thea reacts with shock, fearing her father is destined to suffer in a familiar place again.
A memory shows baby Thea in her father's arms, marked as a tragic accidental event. In a vision of chaos, Thea worries that past disasters will strike her father once more. Clenching her fist, the young girl declares her firm resolve to stop the impending tragedy. Memories of gossiping women contrast with Thea's fear that she will cause her father more hardship.
Thea worries her presence causes suffering, remembering her father walking away in a sad memory.
Thea looks up with wide, determined eyes, glowing with a newfound sense of purpose and hope. Aside gazes at her with glowing red eyes, offering his full support for her difficult mission. A sharp, rhythmic knock sounding at the door interrupts their quiet conversation during the night. Thea turns as a locket appears, recognizing the presence of Bale outside their room.
Bale, Basto, and Nordic burst in, urgently insisting that Thea must eat to regain her strength. Nordic, the white-bearded man, gently tells Thea that he has an important question for her.
Looking curious, the young girl tilts her head and asks what they need to know.
Over a spread of warm food, Nordic explains they need details about her father's life.
While eating a piece of bread, Thea innocently questions why they need such specific information.
Bale explains they cannot find her father without knowing his appearance and their past home.
Thea realizes with a start that she has only provided her father's name so far. The trio waits expectantly as Thea prepares to reveal the secrets of her past life. Thea loudly announces that she and her father live together in the Jongno district.
Bale, Basto, and Nordic stare at her with blank, completely bewildered expressions after her claim. The group is baffled by the unknown location, while Thea assumes they simply haven't heard of it.
Thea describes Jongno's landmarks and explains how her father moved to the Republic of Korea.
Thea presents her pink kindergarten bag, proving the strange letters are more than just a pattern.
Nordic reflects on her strange story, realizing his previous suspicions about the child were correct. Sitting at the table, the group admits her story is confusing despite her obvious honesty. Basto decides they will follow their original plan and head to the Holy Knight's headquarters.
Basto asks Thea to confirm her father is in this world now, and she agrees.
A vision of the father appears as Basto begins to ask Thea another serious question. Holding a wooden mug, Thea listens as Basto asks if she will leave their mercenary group.
Bale worries the group will dissolve, but Basto admits the girl's presence is vital for Agabert.
Nordic calmly states he will return to the gate, as he never truly wanted this life.
Basto looks away with a somber, conflicted expression as the group discusses their uncertain future. Basto resolves to keep Thea by having her father join the Agabert mercenaries as well.
He believes Thea's status as a dark attribute mage mascot could propel Agabert to rank 1.
Bale acknowledges the plan but points out that mercenary work is dangerous for a family.
Basto insists they need the Death Spirit King and refuses to return to a beggar's life. A glimpse into Basto's violent past reinforces his desperation to maintain their current group status.
Clutching her mug, Thea internally decides that she will never leave the Agabert mercenary group. She plans to use the group's power to find and protect her father for decades.
Letting out a small, determined huff sounding, Thea prepares to announce her surprising new decision. Thea stands up and boldly declares that she will now become independent from her father. The girl repeats her shocking claim of independence, her voice filled with a childish confidence.
Bale and Nordic are stunned, crying out in total shock at Thea's sudden proclamation of independence.
Basto looks on with wide eyes, completely taken aback by the young girl's unexpected statement. Nordic frantically asks if this means she will give up on finding her father entirely.
Thea shakes her head, clarifying that she still intends to find him despite her independence.
She explains that she won't rely on him or ask him for help like before.
Thea announces she will live her own life, jokingly refusing to hide behind him forever.
Bale agrees that 4 years old is plenty of time to be independent, while the older men look on in total shock.
Basto and Nordic are baffled by her age, while Bale insists that everyone has a story worth knowing.
Bale smiles broadly, suggesting they start earning proper money as mercenaries now that she has declared her own independence. Bale promises they are here to help, mentioning himself, Basto, Nordic, and the Agabert group as her supporting allies.
Looking determined with glowing green eyes, Thea excitedly accepts her new role as the group's young necromancer king.
Bale suggests writing a memorandum to ensure they never leave Agabert, surprising Thea, who has never written one before.
Bale presents the document stating she cannot withdraw without their consent, while Basto wonders when he even prepared it.
Nordic and Basto look skeptical, with the elder noting that such a childish document likely has no legal standing.
Thea cheerfully urges Bale to write his own name on the paper to finalize their new mercenary contract.
A gentle, warm smile spreads across the young man's face as he watches the girl with affection.
Tucked into bed, Thea asks if Basto hates all paladins, prompting the scarred man to admit his deep dislike. Thea gasps, wondering if paladins all take bribes, but Basto explains that the hatred from mercenaries is nearly universal.
Bale asks if her father was a corrupt paladin, causing Thea to angrily shout that her dad is nice. Thea lies awake, wondering why Basto was with her father in her dream before the tragic accident occurred.
Recalling her father's kindness, Thea wonders if he was working undercover like police on television, as she asks why paladins are hated.
Basto explains that his resentment stems from the imperial family abandoning both the mercenaries and the common people.
A vision shows magic stones erupting from cracks in the earth as the empire abandoned territory to save its capital. Commoners in the abandoned lands rose up as mercenaries to fight the monsters and reclaim the land themselves. Basto laments how local lords and mercenaries bled for the territory, while the imperial family offered absolutely no support.
Basto explains the lingering resentment while a map shows how the imperial family only protected regions they specifically needed.
The grand coastal city of Phil City stands tall against the deep blue, shimmering waters of the ocean.
Nordic explains that Phil City had many mercenaries until the imperial family and the order performed a holy consecration ritual. Thea asks about the meaning of consecration, and Nordic defines it as an offering to God for divine protection.
A vision depicts a horned spirit performing a holy ritual meant to protect the land from monsters and stones. Golden light washes over the peaceful city, signifying the successful completion of the powerful holy protection ritual. Nordic confirms that no more magic stones appeared after the consecration, bringing a temporary sense of peace to Phil City. Thea rolls over, calling the imperial family cheap and wondering if her father would also despise their selfish actions.
Basto chuckles at the girl's bluntness, impressed that she can speak so clearly about such complex matters.
Thea rages under her covers, insisting the empire should protect everyone equally to prevent people from fighting one another. Nordic agrees with Thea's wisdom as the girl hopes that Basto won't hate her father when they find him. Basto looks thoughtfully into the distance as he mentions they will start her necromancer king training tomorrow morning. A lone white bird glides gracefully over the bustling harbor where many different ships are docked. A splash sounding follows the boat's movement as the sailors note the strangely high waves despite the clear sky. Raoul and Enzo, two former knights turned sailors, discuss their hopes for a big catch to reassure their mother. As the boat sails over rough water, a voice asks the two men about a knight's true duty. In a warm flashback, young Raoul and Enzo sit by a campfire while a pot boils over the flames. The boys enthusiastically answer that a knight's duty is to annihilate the enemy, bumping their fists together in excitement. A warm, satisfied smile appears on the man's face as he addresses the children by the fire. The man gently explains that his personal duty is to protect them both, a promise he made to their mother. A loving head pat is suddenly interrupted by a terrifying vision of blood and a monster's arrival in the dark. Blood stains the white bandages wrapped tightly around the injured man's midsection and his heavily scarred back. Raoul and Enzo scream in terror as fire erupts and a monstrous creature looms over their fallen, bloodied father. Somber mourners gather in the grand hall as a woman collapses in grief on the floor. A blue-haired woman weeps uncontrollably while clutching a sheathed sword tightly against her chest in the quiet room. In the present, the brothers promise to protect their mother, Marianne, who looks weary and haunted by the past. A shake sounding rocks the vessel as Enzo looks overboard, wondering if something is caught under the boat's hull. A boom sounding echoes as the ship is pulled into a dark whirlpool, revealing a monstrous eye beneath. In another memory, a voice asks Marianne if she is crazy for refusing the position of consul. Marianne tells her mother she cannot be consul, claiming she is only capable of simple administrative work for the family. Her mother looms over her, harshly asking if she truly intends to hide in her room for eternity. Marianne's mother scolds her harshly, claiming her poor behavior is causing Raoul and Enzo to change for the worse. The woman continues her lecture, reminding a weeping Marianne that she is the only parent the twins have left. In the present, Marianne stands alone by a large window, gazing out at the peaceful city and ocean. A formal introduction identifies the blue-haired woman as Marianne Waverill Young, the Marchioness and Consul of Fell City. An official informs the consul that public sentiment is stable following the successful consecration ritual performed by the Empire. While signing documents, Marianne reflects on being a mere puppet figurehead while steeling her resolve for her children's sake. She recalls how the twins regained their joy, training with swords and sharing tales of their adventures at sea. Marianne is suddenly startled by a loud, ominous rumbling sounding that vibrates through the entire room. Panic erupts in the streets below as a massive magic stone appears, prompting terrified cries from the local citizens. A colossal, glowing magic stone structure rises from the ocean as people scream to evacuate for their lives. The Agabert group, Basto, Nordic, Bale, and Thies stares out of a window with expressions of total shock and disbelief. Thee innocently asks if the protection ritual failed, while Nordic wonders how such a catastrophe is even physically possible. A desperate man shouts in the rainy street, wondering who will protect the village from the sunset monster swarm. Marianne runs through the downpour as her attendants frantically call out to her to stay out of the rain. A splash sounding follows Marianne's steps as she panics, realizing Raoul and Enzo never returned from their boat trip. Local sailors refuse to help, arguing that sailing toward the unknown magic stone would be a total suicide mission. Rudy, a red-haired mercenary with a facial scar, rubs his head in stress while the villagers beg for help. Marianne gasps in hope as someone mentions that the top-ranked Travaga mercenary corps might be staying in the city. Rudy explains that Travaga left yesterday, leaving the villagers to despair over their abandoned homes and vulnerable fishing ships. An older villager cries out in agony, asking if there is truly no mercenary left to save their village. He shouts that if they leave now, they are no better than the paladins who abandoned them long ago. A silver-haired man with an eye patch yells at the old man before a brutal kick sounding sends him sprawling. Standing over the injured man, the mercenary captain, Carl, calls the villagers useless for being unable to help themselves. Carl continues his verbal assault, insisting the villagers should be on their knees begging instead of making insulting comparisons. Grabbing the man by his collar, Carl promises to make him pay for running his mouth at the great Carl. Marianne arrives on the scene, shouting at Carl to stop his violence as the villagers cry out for the consul. Carl laughs mockingly after being addressed by Marianne, demanding to know who she is as she identifies as the consul. With a predatory smirk, Carl insults Marianne's authority by suggesting she would be much better suited as a mistress. Rudy watches with a wide-eyed, stunned expression as a sudden, incredibly fast movement cuts through the heavy rain. A massive punch sounding echoes as Carl is sent flying backward, leaving his subordinates screaming his name in shock. Basto stands tall with glowing white eyes, growling that he has been waiting a long time to find Carl. Carl trembles on the ground, stuttering in disbelief and terror as he recognizes the scarred man standing before him. Bale holds a sharp dagger to Carl's throat, asking if he has any idea what hell they suffered. Bale rages about their captain losing his entire fortune to clean up the disastrous mess Carl left behind years ago. Thea gazes down at the silver-haired man, confirming in her mind that this pathetic person is indeed the infamous Carl. Letting out a small huff sounding, the young girl observes with a frown that Carl looks really mean. Marianne stands in the rain, staring at the newcomers with a mixture of confusion, shock, and lingering fear.
Nordic enters the scene, surprising the onlookers by recognizing Marianne as a member of the wealthy and powerful Waverl family. Nordic politely asks why the consul is standing in the rain as Rudy attempts to offer her his coat.
Marianne whispers her children's names in distress while Rudy urges her to get inside the inn for her safety.
Basto leads the way inside as Bale warns Carl not to even think about trying to run away now.
Bale promises to make Carl regret his existence tonight while Basto and Nordic loom over him with glowing, vengeful eyes.
A heavy slam sounding follows as the large wooden doors of the inn are closed against the storm. Carl remains on the ground, his face twisted into a mask of pure, unadulterated rage as the rain pours down. Villagers whisper in the rain, questioning if the small, cloaked figure was truly the leader mentioned by the mercenaries. Rumors spread that the Necromancer King is a monster in disguise who single-handedly conquered the dangerous Tenebra Mana Stones. Another man adds that the king is a total eccentric, having been spotted crying on the street just yesterday. They whisper that he pretends to be a pitiful child to lure people in before casting wicked hallucination spells. Despite the terrifying rumors, the villagers hope his immense skills can take down the magic stone rising from the sea. Carl erupts in a furious scream, ordering his men to shut their mouths about Agabert breaking into the top 10. Carl glares through the heavy rain as his subordinates wait for his next command. Carl curses the paladins, wondering if his bribes were insufficient to secure their continued cooperation. Carl rages about Basto and Agabert's rise in rank, questioning why the Necromancer King wants his spot. A splash sounding echoes as rain fills the puddles, reflecting the somber mood of the city.
Carl declares that the Death Hounds will be the ones to seize the rising Mana Stone.
Marianne clutches her shirt in mounting desperation as the weight of her responsibility becomes crushing. Snapping out of her trance, Marianne apologizes to the group, wondering how much she has missed. Nordic asks if the Imperial household has sent any word regarding the crisis in the sea. Rudy bows respectfully while informing the others that his adjutant has already sent an urgent dispatch. A heavy splash sounding follows the rain against the doors as they acknowledge replies take time. Thea looks down somberly, her face obscured by shadows as the gravity of the situation sinks in.
Thea asks if someone is in the sea, noticing the woman's gaze constantly drifting toward the ocean.
A sudden gasp sounding escapes Marianne as she looks at the girl with total shock and fear. Marianne's heart collapses under the truth as she begins to admit her true identity through her tears. Marianne grieves before her husband's memorial, recalling how he returned with nothing left of his body. She tries to convince herself that the twins are safely taking refuge somewhere during the storm. At the end of her denial, she fears that only her son's corpses will eventually return. Marianne cries out in mental agony while Rudy looks on with a worried and helpless expression.
Thea raises her hand with a cheerful wave, suddenly appearing much more energetic than before.
Bale objects to the mission, questioning why they should save anyone when they were already packed. Basto refuses to take a boat out into the storm just because a rival appeared.
Bale mockingly asks Thea if she has finally decided to use the mercenaries as her undead.
Basto and Bale express skepticism, noting it would be a miracle to return from that storm.
Nordic suggests that evacuating the residents is the best course before the rift activates tonight.
Thea shouts a loud protest, insisting that they must not cancel the Mana Stone siege mission.
Basto, Bale, and Nordic stare at the girl with expressions of total confusion and bewildered surprise.
The girl explains they will find the sons and return to persuade the villagers to evacuate. The rain continues to pour over the city as she outlines her plan to save everyone.
Basto agrees it is possible, while Bale rages at his captain for lacking any real discretion. Thea points out that their mercenary corps is currently unknown and lacks any significant funds.
Thea motions for her teammates to huddle close for a very important and secretive tactical meeting.
She whispers conspiratorially that the governor is incredibly wealthy, making this mission a priority for them.
Thea notes the governor wears gold and has a youthful face without a single visible wrinkle. A flashback depicts a family watching a youthful woman on television while discussing her expensive maintenance.
Nordic agrees that every part of the girl's observations about the governor's status is truly correct. Nordic explains that a connection with the wealthy Raverl family would be very advantageous for Agabert.
Marianne looks up in shock as the group reaches a sudden and unexpected decision to help. A heavy splash sounding accompanies the waves as a large ship sits docked in the harbor. The group walks through the rainy harbor, drawing murmurs and stares from the local villagers. Thea stands atop a wooden crate and shouts out to the governor with newfound enthusiasm.
Marianne gazes at the leader of Agabert, wondering how she could make such a reckless decision. Bale grips the ship's rope tightly while admitting that he is feeling a bit moved.
Bale reflects on how serious the young girl has become regarding the success of their group. Thea boasts that Basto is an expert sailor and Vale has incredible eyes for seeing far. A tear of hope falls down Marianne's face as they promise to find her lost sons. Nordic looks toward the ocean with a somber and determined expression as they prepare for departure. A boom sounding follows a lightning strike as the ship sets sail into the violent storm. The villagers cheer from the docks, wishing the mercenary corps safety and luck in their battle. A shout sounding follows the ship as a voice calls out to the crew from shore. Carl laughs maniacally from the dock, asking the departing mercenaries where they are heading in such a hurry. Villagers observe a second ship, identifying the Deathhound's mercenaries on board through a telescope. The ships converge, prompting great alarm that a collision with Agabert's vessel would cause a disaster.
Looking angry, the young blonde girl shouts that the villain is at it again during the storm.
A heavy spray of ocean water and freezing rain fills the air during the intense naval chase.
On the ship, the dark-haired woman demands to know what the others are babbling about in the chaos. Basto steers the boat, promising to dodge while asking if anyone can see the missing young lords.
Bale complains that the massive ship is blocking her view and preventing them from seeing the target. Basto grips the wheel while a sinister voice wishes he had died quietly outside the capital. Carl laughs maniacally, declaring that the Agabert mercenary group is finished if their vanguard, Basto, dies here. Commands are shouted to proceed as planned while the large ship cuts through the turning white ice. A look of sheer, wide-eyed shock crosses Bale's face as she grips a rope for balance. A small boat approaches the massive, ornate temple structure rising suddenly from the churning ocean waters. The majestic and glowing magic stone structure towers over the violent waves and the tiny approaching vessel. Bale yells that they are heading toward the magic stone where another ship is already anchored. Back at the harbor, Rudy and Nordic watch as Thea stands atop wooden crates, shouting into the rain.
Thea worries that her skeleton friends cannot swim to help reach the boys at the magic stone.
A memory shows Basto ordering the others to wait behind because the sea mission is too dangerous.
Thea fumes over the villain Carl's attempt to bully Basto once again during this critical crisis.
Marianne stands paralyzed in the pouring rain, her eyes wide with mounting dread for her lost sons. Seeing the crack on the stone grow, Thea decides she must help despite having no clear plan.
A mysterious, echoing voice calls out to the young blonde girl through the thick mist and rain.
A giant ghostly skull appears in the water, addressing the young girl as its master. Glowing spirits emerge from the water, claiming they have been waiting for their master to arrive. Basto warns that the currents near the rising magic stone are the most violent in the sea. Bale worries about the sunset and the pursuers, suggesting they should escape before the situation worsens. Basto recalls when Bale was a small child who had been separated from her parents at sea. A younger Basto smiles warmly in a memory, while a little girl reaches out to him. Basto reflects on how Carl Woben forced him onto the battlefield once the girl turned 8. He thought the rewards were for the child's future, but he lost Lilia before they could benefit. Bale cries, admitting there are times when she refuses to be cold and rational about her mission. A sudden, sharp gasp sounding escapes the dark-haired woman as she is urged to move out.
Basto tells her to get there as fast as she can before everyone on the ship dies.
Rain pours over the dark-haired woman as she moves with intense purpose toward the target ship. Narration explains the ship was destroyed by the magic stone rising suddenly from the ocean depths.
To prevent drifting away in the tide, the ship was tied to the stone's massive pillars.
Lying in the water, a dark-haired boy struggles to keep himself from losing consciousness. A gloved hand reaches for the boy as a loud voice commands him to wake up immediately. Waking with a huff sounding, the boy gasps for air while blinking against the freezing rain.
Bale tells the boy there is no time for explanations and demands he get up and hurry.
A sharp arrow sounding whistles through the stormy air with lethal speed toward the deck.
The arrow thuds into the wood near the boy's head, shocking him into a stunned silence.
On the deck, a man yells to leave the sons out of the mercenary conflict as waves crash. The dark-haired boy looks up at the sky, completely bewildered by the chaotic battle surrounding him. The magic stone rift opens in the sea, crackling with dangerous and glowing blue energy. Bale shouts that she is a good mercenary, while the death hounds attacking them are mere trash. The boy realizes this woman must be the mercenary his mother hired to save the family. Bale points and yells for him to get on the big ship where his brother waits. The ship lurches violently in the current, making it impossible for the boy to maintain his footing. Massive sea monsters with glowing eyes emerge from the dark water with predatory intent. A boom sounding echoes as a massive wave crashes, tossing a figure into the air among sea monsters. Purple tentacles thrash wildly as the dark-haired boy is tossed through the stormy, rain-filled air. The dark-haired boy sinks into despair, feeling that his struggle has finally come to a tragic end. Visions of his parents appear as he calls out to them in what feels like his final moments. Massive sea monsters continue their assault, tearing apart the surrounding structures with their powerful, glowing tentacles. The ocean is filled with predatory sea creatures swarming around the remains of the shattered fleet. With a sudden, soft thud sounding, the boy lands safely onto a pile of dry hay. He sits up in confusion, realizing he is no longer in the freezing water of the sea. The blonde girl smiles triumphantly, congratulating herself on the successful rescue of the high-priority target.
Thea reassures the boy he is safe, while her ghostly spirits acknowledge her as their master.
Glowing green spirits swirl through the air, whispering and calling out to their master with reverence.
A massive phantom ship emerges from the mist as the spirits pledge to follow any command given. Thea orders her spirits to find Basto's enemy and deliver a harsh scolding to the villain.
Ghostly green flames erupt from the masts of the phantom vessel as it sails toward the enemy. Cal Woban looks on in absolute disbelief, demanding to know the origin of the mysterious ghost ship.
Panic spreads through the crew as they realize the legendary Necromancer King is leading the assault.
Cal rages against the impossible situation, insisting he destroyed every boat that could have reached them.
The villain realizes Basto is using a tiny boat for a siege to bury him in this storm.
Gripped by intense fury and sweat, Cal fears that Basto will finally be his ultimate downfall.
Screams of agony fill the air as the invisible spirits begin their devastating attack on the enemy deck.
A sword clatters to the deck while a terrified mercenary gasps in shock at the unseen force.
On the other ship, Bale and Basto watch in shock as the girl arrives on the phantom vessel.
Villagers on the shore cry out in amazement, witnessing the impossible arrival of the ghost ship firsthand.
Villagers describe how the young girl stomped her feet and muttered incantations to summon the great shipwreck.
A majestic ghost ship rises from the depths, lowering its own ramp to welcome its new passengers.
The empty vessel glows with an eerie light as the boarding ramp settles against the dock. Narration explains the Necromancer King spoke in a whisper, as if searching for someone to join the afterlife.
Standing boldly on the ramp, Thea invites anyone brave enough to follow her onto the ghost ship.
Marianne stands paralyzed by the terrifying sight of the phantom ship of the dead summoned by the girl. Without a single moment of hesitation, the governor rushes forward to follow the girl onto the vessel.
Miriam cries out for Raul as she finds him, while the boy asks how she reached him.
She weeps with relief, explaining that the Necromancer King's mercenary group came to save their family.
Raul stares in shock, realizing the small child is the legendary Necromancer King, conversing with her spirits.
With a sharp tap sounding, Thea stomps her foot on the deck and commands everyone to listen. She declares that the tide of the dead is flowing around her ship, terrifying the villainous crew below.
The girl warns that touching the abyss of silence within that tide will lead to a terrible fate.
Thea pauses mid-sentence, her expression turning blank as she loses her train of thought during the speech.
Looking puzzled, she asks her spirits to remind her what actually happens if someone touches the abyss.
She quickly resumes her dramatic performance, claiming the deep sea's chill will plant pure terror in their souls. Ghostly skulls fly through the enemy crew, who begin sobbing and screaming that they are all going to die. Cal Woban sneers at his cowardly men, dismissing the girl's threats as nothing more than empty bluffs. A sudden sharp gasp sounding escapes Cal as he realizes something has gone horribly wrong on his ship. He looks around in a panicked frenzy, wondering where all of his men have suddenly disappeared to. Rotting, spectral hands grab Cal's neck as a vengeful spirit groans his name with deep-seated hatred. A massive spirit shrieks Cal's name, accusing him of driving his own husband to the brink of death. The spirit mocks him, asking if he enjoyed the suffering he caused while purple energy constricts him. Cal chokes out a woman's name as the spirit accuses him of using them all as monster bait.
Cal begs Eve for forgiveness while the spirit vows to drag him down into the afterlife alone.
Basto hears Cal's desperate plea for help and looks back at the enemy ship with total bewilderment. A single thought bubble hangs in the air, questioning the identity of the person named Eve.
Bale rushes toward the railing, shouting for the captain and pointing out the location of Big Brother Vale.
Enzo runs across the deck toward his brother and mother, shouting for them to wait immediately. Thea excitedly cheers about her new vroom vroom sailboat, while Bale stares in genuine wide-eyed terror.
Basto watches silently from the deck as the small girl leads her phantom vessel forward.
Glowing spirits swarm the enemy ship, while Bale wonders if Cal is seeing the dead. Thea looks up at a massive green spirit, claiming that Grimnir told her the whole truth. Thea explains Grimnir is the Phantom Master, while Bale wonders if she is simply translating for it.
The phantom ship sails through a domain where the tide of the dead causes a silent state.
Cal Woban screams in agony as Thea explains his soul will soon be linked to them. Basto stares at the swirling green energy, asking if his wife has truly become a ghost. The young blonde girl looks toward the mister with a look of quiet and serious realization. Cal groans with a sharp sounding as the spirit of his wife Eve finally appears. Basto kneels on the deck as the green spirit of Eve calls him a poor soul. Eve laments that her current existence and Basto's standing place both feel like a total hell. The spirit finds peace knowing that at least their daughter Lilia is not suffering like that. A serene smile touches the face of the ghostly woman as she finally finds true peace. Eve explains a grudge trapped her, but Lilia has moved on as Thea watches them closely. Basto looks up in shock as he hears that Lady Eve told him not to worry. A bright vision shows a happy little girl walking toward a warm and golden afterlife door. Tears stream down the man's face as he chokes out the name of his lost daughter. Basto collapses into the ghostly embrace of his wife, weeping for his lost family and home. A glowing text bubble reveals that Eve refuses to burden the young child any longer today. With a flash of green light, the spiritual energy begins to fade from the man's face. Eve disappears while thanking the Necromancer King as Cal lets out a final and agonizing scream. Cal Woban falls from the vessel toward the jagged and multi-eyed maw of a sea monster. A final spiritual message floats in the air, asking that someone take good care of Basto. The three unlikely allies stand together on the ship's deck in a moment of somber silence. Basto stands over the bound mercenaries on the deck while a captive begs for his mercy. A terrified mercenary pleads for his life, claiming they never truly wanted to betray Brother Basto.
Bill grabs the traitor by his hair, ordering him to shut up or face the monsters.
Thea dances joyfully amidst the green spirits, singing and pointing the way for her phantom ship. She explains that monsters die and join her side after losing strength in the tide's current. A massive, glowing green kraken spirit rises from the depths to crush a giant sea monster. Bale calls Thea a crazy brat for her solo siege while Basto prepares for the next. Marianne stands on the deck with her sons, asking in total disbelief what Raoul just said. The dark-haired boy bows his head in a silent and heavy moment of resolve for them. Marianne stares with wide eyes, insisting that her son Raoul has completely lost his mind now. Raoul and Enzo explain they feel the same way and need her to listen very seriously. The young man looks at his mother and declares their intent to wield swords once again. Marianne screams that she will never allow it, regardless of why she fled the Empire before. A memory shows Marianne weeping as her sons claim she misunderstands the reason for their choices. The grieving mother pulls her sons close in a golden-hued memory of their shared past together.
Raoul clarifies they didn't quit the Knights just because their father passed away years ago.
A memory shows the grandmother fretting that the boys would meet the same fate as him. At the dinner table, the grandmother tells Raoul and Enzo they are the only way left. She admits she must use the boys to save Marianne, despite how much she cherishes them. The elderly woman begs for their help while Marianne is seen walking away in the distance. Narration explains that seeing her sons broken helped Marianne regain her senses and find inner happiness. Raoul looks at his mother and admits that they were just as scared as their grandmother. He recalls how the grandmother personally sought out stable magistrate positions for both of them then. Marianne looks away with a troubled expression, finally realizing the children were right all along. Enzo looks at his mother and says they don't resent her or blame her for their choices. He explains that their choice to put down their swords wasn't solely because of her influence. Marianne weeps silently, acknowledging to herself that she understands their hearts better than anyone else does. A memory shows the twins' father standing proudly with them, reflecting their upright and steadfast nature. Following their father's death, the boys appeared to lose all will, leading Marianne to feel guilty. She recalls watching them through a doorway, unable to stop their withdrawal or encourage their progress. Spiritual energy swirls in the air as Marianne reflects on the weight of her past decisions. She imagines her late husband would be disappointed in her for how she handled their children. Tears flow freely as she admits she burdened her sons with her own deep-seated anxieties and fears. A sudden, tight squeeze sounding accompanies Enzo taking his mother's hands in his to offer her comfort. Raoul embraces his mother from behind, providing a supportive presence as she releases her bottled-up emotions. They realize that simply quitting the Knights didn't stop her trembling or bring the peace they sought. Their hands remain tightly clasped together, symbolizing a newfound resolve and family unity against their past. A shaky breath escapes Marianne as she finally begins to let go of her long-held guilt. The brothers share a knowing look and gentle smiles, proud of their decision to change their path. Raoul declares their new intention is to follow the mercenary group that saved their city today. Agabert carries the small blonde girl across the deck, leading their allies toward the next destination. Marianne looks on in confusion, questioning the sudden and bold declaration her sons have just made. Raoul prepares to reveal a secret about their father's death during the battle at the Empire's border. He describes a battlefield where 4 units sieged a large mana stone, which produced a smaller fragment.
The siege occurred near a residential area, leading to complications the Holy Knights were forced to navigate.
Because the location was outside the Empire, the Holy Knights couldn't get the necessary permission to intervene. Their father fought for the residents' safety, but the higher-ups hesitated to act without official imperial approval. A sudden, tight grip sounding emphasizes Raoul's anger as he explains the imperial family's rejection caused tragedy. He notes the imperial forces are once again dragging their feet regarding the Mana Stone in Pearl City.
The young man questions if the knight's holy mission is truly about saving people and killing monsters. He concludes that the mercenaries currently feel more heroic and holy than the actual knights of the empire. Marianne gazes at the heroes, admitting that she now shares her son's perspective on the mercenary group. She reflects that the actions she witnessed today look more like true holy power than anything else.
The crowd cheers wildly as Agabert returns after successfully sieging the dangerous Mana Stone at Pearl City. A bright flash sounding accompanies the mercenary group walking through the crowd that celebrates their protection. People weep with joy and gratitude, calling out their thanks to the arriving heroes on the ship.
A sudden halt sounding comes from the elder mercenary who asks the crowd to let the girl rest.
She blushes as she admits her limbs feel floppy-woppy despite being generally okay after using her power.
A quiet whisper sounding escapes Agabert as he insists the young girl must rest to avoid mana depletion.
Marianne approaches the group and asks if they can move the conversation to the magistrate's office instead. She wishes to formally express her gratitude to Agabert and his companions for saving the entire city.
A rushing flare sounding erupts from the ship's masts as the glowing phantom energy begins to dissipate.
A wave of transformation washes over the scene, clearing the eerie mist and replacing it with warmth.
A sudden pop sounding marks the moment the final remnants of the powerful siege spell are dispersed.
A peaceful and flowery transition marks the end of the immediate crisis as the city begins recovering.
As the Archon of Pearl City, Marianne offers her deepest and most sincere thanks to Agabert's group.
Thee looks up with sparkling wide eyes, clearly delighted by the warm reception from the city's leader.
The streets echo with cheers for Agabert and the Necromancer King as the group walks through town.
A rhythmic thumping sounding escapes Thee as her heart beats with pride at being hailed as a hero.
As the sun sets over the ocean, a distant echo of a child calling for their father sounds. A soft drifting sounding accompanies Thee as she falls into a deep sleep after protecting the people.
A lone ship sails across the sea off the central continent during a vibrant and golden sunset.
A dark-haired man stands at the railing, gazing thoughtfully out at the vast and shimmering ocean horizon.
A splashing wave sounding fills the air as the man turns his head with a quiet, contemplative expression.
Tyre stands on the deck as narration reflects on a child's sorrowful cry for her father.
A bright golden eye gazes with intensity in a tight and focused close-up shot.
Alaric looks down with a troubled expression as a heavy thud sounding echoes his internal confusion.
A man in glasses asks Alaric if he has a secret child, which he finds ridiculous.
Alaric reflects on his mercenary corps as a home for outcasts, shaken by a child's voice.
The black-haired man kneels on the floor, releasing a shaky gasp sounding while recalling her tears.
He clutches his hair and lets out a sudden shout, sounding worried about orphans on the docks.
Feet move with a quick click-clack sounding as Alaric enters a cabin to borrow a communication orb. Alaric needs to contact the Imperial Court about Pearl City, ignoring the captain's lighthearted chuckle.
He hates dealing with the court, but feels an uneasy pressure that he simply cannot ignore.
A text bubble asks the captain if he has ever seen the Necromancer King in person. The captain confirms he heard the Agabert Mercenary Corps visited Pearl City recently with their leader.
He mentions a young sailor who claimed to have seen the Necromancer King with his own eyes.
A faceless chibi illustration shows a small girl with blonde hair wearing a bright orange dress.
Alaric's eyes narrow as he hears descriptions of the girl's bright yellow hair and adorable face.
The captain explains the girl was in a disguise that was incredibly difficult to see through.
Alaric shouts the name of Agabert as a heavy thud sounding emphasizes his sudden and intense shock.
He realizes he was played, recalling a report he received from Pep earlier about the group.
A menacing shadow looms over Alaric as a sudden crackling sounding marks his realization of the deception.
Narration questions the Necromancer King's strange methods for starting what looks like a new power struggle.
Tyre sleeps peacefully in her bed, letting out a soft and gentle snore sounding during her nap. Agabert looks at the two young men and asks if they truly wish to join his corps.
The boys claim they can handle swords, but Agabert notes they were completely helpless at sea yesterday. Raoul describes a female fighter's efficient movements and speed, expressing his desire to become her apprentice. Chibi Pep is delighted by the praise, while Chibi Agabert remains silent and unimpressed in the corner.
Enzo admires Vale's natural build and heavy strikes, stating his intent to learn from the massive mercenary.
The young man asks if the captain avoids them because she doesn't like their sudden presence.
While Tyre sleeps, the group notes that a 4-year-old simply needs to follow her nap schedule.
Pep smiles knowingly, suggesting that even if the captain didn't like them, it wouldn't change anything. The red-haired woman poses confidently, claiming she is the one who monopolizes their young leader's favor. The two boys react with a long and impressed, excited exclamation sounding at the woman's bold claim.
A text bubble tells Vale to be honest after a sudden and awkward cough sounding fills the air. Vale boasts that he is actually the one the captain relies on and likes the most.
Agabert poses with a finger raised, looking quite proud and satisfied as he joins the petty argument.
A small chibi icon expresses total confusion over why the old man is jumping into the fray. Vale argues that combatants contribute more as a rhythmic bickering sounding continues between the seasoned mercenaries. The boys are shocked to see elite mercenaries squabbling like children for the favor of their leader. Narration wonders if the Necromancer King possesses incredible leadership skills to command such talented and wild individuals. Tyre makes a cute sleeping noise with a soft, sleepy sounding as she rolls over in bed. A minimalist view shows the small blonde girl sleeping soundly amidst her pillows and blankets.
Humorous chibi art depicts the mercenaries as various fast food items in a playful and silly montage.
Tyre begins to wake up and move around with a quiet rustle sounding under her covers.
A neatly folded garment sits on the table next to a bag with a bright, shimmering sparkle sounding.
The young girl's green eyes fly open with a sudden and alert quick blink sounding.
Saradin appears in a flash of light as an ethereal chime sounding heralds the sea goddess's arrival.
Tyre reacts with a surprised gasp sounding, her eyes wide as she stares at the beautiful visitor.
Saradin addresses Tyre as a princess and apologizes for waking her from such a sweet slumber. The goddess explains she needed to thank the girl personally before entering her long period of hibernation. Tyre is confused and scratches her head, wondering why the goddess is thanking her for anything. Saradin reveals that Tyre was the one who pulled her from the trapped Mana Stone last night. Tyre expresses her confusion, noting there was no one inside the Mana Stone during the siege. Saradin explains it was natural Tyre didn't see her because she was the stone itself.
The young girl reacts with a startled gasp sounding, her eyes wide with total shock.
Narration confirms the incredible revelation that the princess was actually a powerful and ancient Mana Stone. Saradin clarifies that her nature is simply that of an existence similar to a spirit. Tyre is stunned by the word spirit, her tiny hands flying to her face in wonder. She recalls a boy named Hyunwoo who played a popular mobile game centered around spirits.
A graphic for a game called Spirit Raising Stars highlights several powerful and rare spirit cards.
Tyre remembers Hyunwoo bragging daily about his extensive collection of high-tier spirits and rare skins. Saradin continues her explanation regarding the source of power for spirits like herself and her kin.
A massive tree with glowing leaves and deep red roots symbolizes the goddess's painful transformation.
Tyre asks with a worried expression if the mother tree lost power because she was hurt. Saradin sighs and admits she has delayed too long and must soon return to her slumber. She explains that manifesting has become difficult because a tree with rotten roots eventually withers. Saradin hands Tyre a shimmering blue beaded bracelet as a final and meaningful parting gift. She identifies the artifact as the Sanctity of Oblivion, a name given by ancient human civilizations. Tyre holds up the glowing bracelet as Saradin explains its power to erase memories from targets. Chibi Tyre is incredibly impressed by the powerful and useful memory erasing capabilities of her new accessory. Saradin smiles gently at the girl, assuring her the artifact will definitely be helpful in the future.
A golden locket with a red gem sits on the table as a mysterious, lingering item.
A bright flash sounding accompanies the sea goddess's sudden and quiet disappearance from the ornate room. Tyre sits alone on the large bed, thoughtfully looking down at the shimmering bracelet on her wrist. She thinks of her companion Blackie, questioning if he is more than just a simple puppet. Her thoughts focus on finding a powerful spirit that can help her locate her missing father. Tyre writes her future plan on a notepad, making finding her dad her absolute top priority. She feels confident and proud as she finishes her detailed list of goals and ongoing research. Tyre tries to simplify the complex explanation of the mother tree and the weakened baby spirits. She wonders if all Mana Stones are spirits, but admits she hasn't found proof of this yet. The girl continues scribbling in her notebook, focused intently on her ongoing detective work and plans. Her list reminds her to investigate the mother tree and check other stones for spirit life. Tyre lies on the bed for a brief moment of quiet reflection before moving on. She imagines a kind teacher praising her writing and saying her father would be very proud. The young girl admits she misses her previous life and wishes she could go to kindergarten again. Playful chibi art shows Tyre's genuine fondness for her mercenary friends, Vasto, Vale, and Grandpa. She recalls the kind elderly women and friendly neighbors she left behind in her former home. Tyre lies down and weeps softly as she remembers the kindergarten kids and her favorite teacher. A sudden gurgling sounding from her stomach interrupts her sorrowful trip down a painful memory lane. Tyre hops off the bed, deciding she needs to find her companions and eat a meal. She wonders if the food at the governor's office will be tastier than her usual simple meals.
Tyre runs happily toward the door, calling out for Mr. Vasto and Grandpa Nordics to join her.
Agabert catches the excited girl as she bursts through the door with a loud gasp sounding. Tyr looks up curiously at a group of people standing in the hallway with shocked expressions. Raoul and Enzo stand frozen in total disbelief as they stare at the small, blonde girl.
Tyre realizes with horror that she completely forgot she must keep up her Necromancer King act.
A dark realization hits the girl as she tells the boys to wait without moving an inch.
Agabert holds Tyre and warns the boys that they cannot join if they move from their spot. A sudden bang sounding echoes through the hallway as Agabert slams the bedroom door shut again.
Raoul questions if the tiny child they just saw was truly the legendary and powerful hero.
Enzo admits he previously believed the girl's small form was just a very clever magical disguise. The young man concludes that the actual hero behind the legend is a very cute little girl.
Tyre wails in despair, declaring that she has truly messed everything up this time.
The small blonde girl sobs on the floor while her companions stand over her as she laments forgetting her acting instructions.
The ponytail man and the gray-haired elder acknowledge that a child's acting has limits, making minimized exposure the best strategy.
The bearded man ponders how to appease the boys while narrating that their current predicament is not Tyre's fault.
Tyre cries while worrying about rumors spreading and being forced to leave the mercenary corps she loves so much.
A chaotic vision shows a crowd accusing the mercenaries of deception upon discovering the hero is just a child. A stern official in green armor demands the group disband, citing strict no-kids policies for all mercenary corps. An intense thought bubble emphasizes Tyre's desperate and protective resolve to save her father at any cost.
The girl's eyes gleam with a new plan as a bright, shimmering sparkle sounding highlights her magical blue beaded bracelet.
A massive close-up captures the glowing intensity and determination within Tyre's bright and sparkling green eyes.
A tutorial-like bubble explains that the bracelet grants the user power to erase specific memories from any chosen target.
A purple-bordered thought bubble darkly considers if Tyre should simply get rid of the people threatening her secret. The three men react with visible horror as they sense the young girl's sudden and chilling shift in intent.
The dark thought bubble clarifies the girl's dangerous query about whether she should eliminate the administrator's sons entirely.
Tyre looks down with a shadow over her face while her three companions let out a terrified and sudden scream sounding.
The men shout that she absolutely cannot do that, horrified that a 4-year-old has already seen far too much violence. Tyre sprints away with a quick pitter-patter sounding, insisting she must test if her new power actually erases things.
The ponytail man scoops up the struggling child with a quick grab, sounding, weeping as he wonders where her kindness went. The man yells that he refuses to let her kill anyone as the girl looks up in total shock. Tyre trembles with a soft, shivering sounding as she realizes her companions think she intends to actually murder the recruits. A long and awkward silence fills the room as the ponytail man and the others look at the child. The scene focuses on the lower half of the ponytail man's face as he prepares to voice his realization. A bubble clarifies that the magic stone was a spirit who gifted Tyre a bracelet capable of erasing memories.
The focus returns to the beautiful blue beaded bracelet on the young girl's small wrist as it lets out a shimmer. A text bubble asks for confirmation if the artifact is indeed the legendary and powerful Bracelet of Oblivion.
Tyre excitedly describes the long-haired spirit princess named Sararin, who possessed incredibly sparkly and shining eyes.
An ethereal and glowing vision of the sea goddess Saradin appears, radiating a divine and ancient power from within.
A small icon notes a local legend about a god named Saradin whose blessing supposedly protects Pearl City.
The gray-haired elder reflects on the local lore regarding the god Saradin while the scene maintains its quiet atmosphere. The ponytail man asks if she freed the god from a stone as Tyre proudly displays her new bracelet. The bearded man turns to the elder, sensing the immense historical weight of the item Tyre found.
The elder sighs and identifies the bracelet as a rare relic discovered during the recent Magic Stone siege.
A flashback depicts the rare occurrence of finding loot other than monster cores during a siege, which are relics. The elder explains the grim reality that no private mercenary group is legally allowed to own a powerful relic. The ponytail man warns that the authorities will inevitably confiscate the item now that a child has found it.
He recalls how the church forcibly collected a relic found by the Holy Knight Order under the guise of collection.
Narration mentions that only one mercenary group ever kept a relic, though their voluntary handover was actually coerced.
The banner of a group called Travaga is shown as a text bubble questions their voluntary surrender of a relic.
A dark atmosphere surrounds the text, stating that everyone believes the group's relic surrender was anything but voluntary. The men discuss how the church pressured even the legendary Travaga, making it certain they will target Tyre. Tyre clutches her arm with a tight squeeze sounding, determined to keep the relic to erase the boys' memories.
The ponytail man lets out a soft chuckle, sounding, smiling as he agrees only their group should know.
The young girl tilts her head curiously while a small sparkle sounding adds a touch of wonder.
He explains that Raoul and Enzo wish to join the corps, causing Tyre to react with a happy gasp sounding.
He suggests they accept the boys first and then decide whether to reveal Tyre's true identity to them.
An illustration shows the recruits standing behind the shimmering blue beaded bracelet as part of the man's new plan.
The man explains that they can simply erase the boys' memories of Tyre if they ever decide to leave.
The blonde girl stares in wide-eyed silence as she processes the surprisingly pragmatic and slightly devious expansion plan.
He notes this allows the group to grow safely, and the gray-haired elder agrees it is a good idea.
Tyre expresses her worry about what might happen if the new recruits try to secretly run away from them.
The ponytail man admits her skeletal summons left the mercenaries with little work to do. The bearded man notes they would spot anyone sneaking out, while the ponytail man threatens to drag any deserters back.
Tyre beams with a cheerful smile and agrees to the plan with an excited exclamation.
The group gathers on the sofas as a heavy atmosphere settles over the ornate room.
The boys learn Lady Astir is a dark mage whose young age requires protection from potential enemies.
The ponytail man explains they disguise the young girl as the legendary 4-year-old necromancer king. Looking at the blonde girl, the two boys silently agree that she is incredibly cute.
The dark-haired young man suggests they accept a condition in exchange for being allowed to join.
He proposes receiving a conditional spell to ensure the young leader's true identity remains a secret.
The ponytail man mentions they confirmed the capabilities of the Bracelet of Oblivion with the elder Basto earlier.
The bearded man explains that only Tyre can use the bracelet and set specific trigger conditions.
The ponytail man notes the artifact's selective memory wiping power is why the church seeks such relics.
The bearded man asks the recruits if they can accept the memory spell as a condition. The ponytail man menacingly tells them to decide carefully, causing Tyre to worry while one boy gulps nervously.
Both recruits smile warmly and ask for the magical spell to be cast on them. The ponytail man tells Tyre to proceed, though she finds his cold demeanor quite startling.
Tyre's bracelet shimmers as she makes contact with the boy's hand with a soft tap sounding.
The young girl feels apologetic as she prepares to erase the governor's son's specific memories.
A massive surge of blue magical energy surrounds the tiny girl as the artifact activates.
Tyre's heart lets out a sudden thump sounding as she focuses her power within the light.
The girl channels her magic specifically toward erasing the boy's memories regarding her real identity.
The magic commands the target to forget everything about Tyre's true nature and current appearance.
The room glows with a divine light as the small child performs the memory sealing ritual. Tyre finishes the process, though the boy notes the spell felt like nothing happened at all. The ponytail man surprises Tyre by requesting that she cast the memory erasing spell on him too.
He explains it might put her at ease, even though he never intends to leave the group.
The bearded man also offers his hand, confident the spell will never actually have to trigger.
Tyre is deeply touched, realizing her companions view her as a cherished, lifelong friend and comrade. The young girl suddenly realizes someone is missing and asks where Grandpa Nordix has gone.
The bearded man notes the elder was present just moments ago as Tyre lets out a gasp sounding.